I've read stories about such events. I'd always assumed that this was a work of fiction, and that nothing like it would ever happen to me. So imagine my surprise that evening when my almost 20-year-old wife told me at dinner, "Darling, we need to talk." My heart jumped into my throat, and I instantly tensed up, bracing for the worst. Has she cheated on me? Did she want a divorce? What might it be? Where are we going wrong? I stared at her across the dining table, my hands shaking as I spoke. I asked, trying to remain calm, "What are we talking about?" "First and foremost, I want you to know that I love you," she said, taking a sip of wine as if to calm her nerves. I noticed that she wasn't eating much. I stared at her, trying to figure out her movements, her expression, anything that might give me a hint as to what was going to happen. I couldn't stand the tension any longer and blurted out, "Did you cheat on me, Maggie?" Her face twitched and she looked at me with big, surprised eyes. "No, of course not," she said. "I'd never cheat on you." However, the way she stressed the word cheating made me nervous. I seemed to let out a sigh of relief. "So if not cheating, what is it? Are you leaving me?" I inquired, fearing the worst. "Oh my God, George," she exclaimed. "Where did you get those thoughts?" "Of course, I will not leave you. I love you." "Okay," I responded. "I also love you. I want to grow old with you and spend the rest of our lives together." Maggie's eyes lit up, and she smiled warmly at me. "I agree, George. So what's the matter? Are you feeling unwell?" I inquired, increasingly concerned about Maggie's health. "I am fine, darling," she assured me. "I did not mean to scare you, but it appears that something has been wrong between us for a long time. Meredith has gone to college. Everything looks different. Maybe it's emptiness syndrome, a midlife crisis, or something similar. However, we appear to be stuck in some sort of rut." I felt a little less anxious, but I was still wondering what was bothering Maggie. "A track? How about that?" I asked. "We've been working so much that we haven't had much time for each other. Your job frequently requires you to leave town, whereas mine frequently requires me to stay in the office late when we are not working. We both become tired. When was the last time we made love? When was the last time we made love?" I repeated her question. To be honest, I couldn't recall the last time it happened. Maggie had not wanted to make love in a long time. "It's been a while, but whenever I try to do anything remotely useful, you shut me down. You will always have an excuse." "That's correct," Maggie agreed. "I know I usually get tired when you want to frolic, but when we were younger, we didn't mind if we were tired or not. We made love 3 or 4 times per week. It now occurs every 3 to 4 months, if that is the case." I responded, agreeing with her. "So what?" My irritation was increasing. She seemed to be accusing me of not loving when she always said no. If it were up to me, we would do it frequently, and I want to get out of this rut we're in. She stated, "I want to settle everything between us so that we can be together for the rest of our lives." "We are bored, George. We have to stop being bored." "I'm not bored," I replied. "I have a lot of worries in my life." "Excitement? Really? What are you planning to do tonight?" she asked with a wry smile. "Follow the curse of Oak Island. They say they'll make a big discovery tonight." I responded after considering her words. "Don't they claim they only find dirt and wood every week?" "Well, I admit it. More or less as I stated." She chuckled. "It is boring." "Okay, it is not boring, it is convenient. It is convenient for us. This is what happens when you've been married for as long as we have. Make yourself comfortable." Maggie explained, "I don't need comfort. When we were first married, you raped me every night. You have not raped me in years. Is this all?" I asked, setting down my fork. "Do you want me to rape you? Pull your pants down and bend over the table. I'm about to rape you now." "It's not quite what I was thinking, George. To be honest, I am as uninterested in making love to you as you are in me. It's just where we're at in life. We have lost the spark. And this worries me. We're already over 40. We still have many years in front of us. I'm concerned that if we've already lost our romantic interest in each other, what will we have left in a few years? How do we stay together? We'll stay together because we're husband and wife. This is exactly what husbands and wives do. We're used to each other. We're comfortable. Who says I'm not interested in making love with you? Of course I am interested. We've become roommates, George. Nice neighbors. I believe we are more than neighbors. I mean, we make love on occasion and we love each other, so we're roommates with infrequent benefits. Yes, I love you, George. And I know you love me, but can you honestly say you still love me as much as you did when we married in the Stone Age? This is entirely different. I tried to explain it like a good wine. Over the years, our love has grown and softened. We've gotten older and our libido is less active than it once was. Don't you want to experience the pleasure and excitement of chemistry again? Like before? She said, taking my hand. I'm not sure, Maggie, but I like how things are right now. I mean, I'd like to make love more often, but I prefer to come home and spend time with you quietly and peacefully. We've worked hard to get where we are. It's just like that damn hammock in the backyard. It's been standing there for nearly 20 years. Every year I promised myself that I'd soon be able to lie down, relax, and read a book. So now that I'm finally getting into this, you say you want to get rid of the hammock. Maggie looked at me, considered my words, and shook her head. I don't get it, but I'm not asking you to give up anything, dear. I'm saying that in my opinion, we need to rekindle our romance and love lives before it's too late. My libido has not died. It's only dormant. I want to feel how we felt when we made love, when he was new, fresh, and exciting, as if we couldn't get enough of him or ourselves. So you're saying our lovemaking isn't satisfying anymore? No, I am not saying that at all. You're a wonderful, caring, and talented lover. When we make love, you always manage to please me. The issue is not that our lovemaking is bad, but that we refuse to do it. What are you saying? I asked. I am confused. I am saying I want more. I don't feel like we're lovers anymore. We are just partners. I want to feel your love again. I want to feel as if I love you again. I want passion. I want to make wishes. I want romance. I thought you said you did not want to make love. Do you want it? I want to make love. It appears that you want to be young again. Are you certain it's not your hormones? Do you get hot flashes? Do not do this, George. Do not oversimplify my feelings, and do not make me a woman with hormonal issues. I don't get PMS whenever I'm upset, and just because I want to rekindle our love does not imply that I'm going through menopause. I apologize. You're correct, it was insensitive. I'm just trying to figure out where everything came from, all of a sudden. Darling, this isn't so surprising. I've been thinking about it for a while. I'm afraid that if we don't do something drastic to restart our relationship, our marriage will fail. She looked like she was going to cry. I overheard what she was saying. To be honest, it sounded like she was on autopilot. Well, if it is not sudden, I asked angrily, so why are you only talking about it now? Why didn't you try to discuss this with me before? It took me a long time to get here, she explained, but I'm discussing it now. I didn't want it to fester. Perhaps there was something to what she was saying. I adored Maggie and was willing to do anything to make her happy and improve our relationship. Okay, I am listening. I can tell you've been thinking about it a lot and it's very important to you. What would you like to do? Should we see a marriage counselor? I read about a person called Intimacy Coach. Should I try and find him? That's a fantastic idea, she smiled, wiping a tear from her cheek. Thank you for your offer. I believe we should try it, but I've been thinking of other things we could do. Like what? Okay, first let me ask you a question. Your company is a creative agency, correct? You keep telling me that you're among the best at what you do. Yes, we are among the top 2 in the state, and possibly the top 5 in the country. Why? How does this relate to our personal lives? Do you hire the best employees? Of course, yes. And how many of these employees have been with your company for, say, 20 years? No one. The company has only been in existence for 6 years. We are constantly attracting new talent. Our industry has a high turnover. Right. So you're constantly learning new skills, ideas, and ways of doing things. Yes, we are extremely creative. We have an ever-changing way of working, and people are constantly bringing new skills and energy, making things better for everyone. Yes, that's correct. Where are you going with all of this? George. It's been 20 years since we married, next month. Prior to that, we had been dating exclusively for 3 years. In all this time, I have never cheated on you. And as far as I know, you've never cheated on me. This means that for nearly 23 years, we've only made love to each other. You were my first, and based on what you've told me, you've only had 2 girlfriends before me. That's correct, I said, beginning to worry about where this would lead. My stomach was clenching. So what? So, would you hire someone to work for your company if he learned his skills 23 years ago and had never taken any lessons, had no new ideas or education? Would you like your employees to practice what you do once every few months? Would your company be the best if everyone stopped trying to be the best and instead aspired to new and higher heights? What? Of course not. But this is entirely different. It is a job. We're talking about ourselves. What do you mean by that? We had advanced skills 23 years ago. We have been doing this all the time. It was new and enjoyable. It was exciting. Then Meredith came along and things changed. We became parents, then professionals, and finally soccer moms and basketball coaches. We've worked on improving our parenting and professional skills. However, we have done nothing to improve our skills with each other. We continue to do things the same way. Conveniently, as always, we found out 23 years ago. It has gone stale. The novelty has vanished. We became bored. It's become a routine. We have lost the spark. What are you saying, Maggie? I'm not saying I need comfort, George. I despise comfort. I'm sick of comfort. I want a new one. I want excitement. I want to improve my skills and become a better lover. I want to use this to reignite the flame between us. Turn our boring, comfortable lives upside down. I want to be in love again. I need a lover, not just a roommate. I want to feel that passion again. I need it. Okay, I muttered. I was shaking all over. I'm not sure whether it's from excitement or adrenaline. Perhaps it was my struggle or the flight protection system going into overdrive. I will do everything in my power to ignite your passion. We can schedule date nights and do whatever you want. I won't be watching TV as much, and we might have hobbies or activities we can do together. We can travel more. You have always enjoyed traveling. So why don't we go somewhere each month? Even if it's only for an overnight stay in a hotel in one of the city's new trendy neighborhoods. Maggie took my hand in hers and kissed it before shaking her head. George, I am sure you would move a mountain for me if you could. I know you think these things will help, but in the end, we are still doing them. We are all the same. Nothing will change, and we'll get bored with it soon. These suggestions are a good start, but they are still overly convenient. We do not learn or experience anything new. So, what are you talking about? I followed you, but you are losing me. What would you suggest we do? Visit a swinger resort or somewhere else? Oh my God, no, she said with disgust. I would never be able to visit a place like this. I couldn't take people trying to persuade us to join them for casual lovemaking. Nope, nothing like that. Then what? I asked, becoming increasingly agitated. So I think we need something like a head shock, a kind of reboot, something new and exciting that will boost our novel and rekindle the spark in our lives. At that point, I was willing to accept almost anything she offered. That sounded great. I am all for it. How would you approach that? I believe I should start dating others. Anything but that. Wow, I said, removing my hands from my wife and frowning at her. Say it again. I do not think I heard you. I mentioned that I needed to start dating others. Yes. Good. It turns out I heard everything correctly the first time, I said, leaning back in my chair at the kitchen table. Then I leaned forward, staring at my wife as if she had lost her mind. Are you crazy? She appeared surprised at my reaction. Not at all. I've been thinking about it a lot. Maggie, I think that is exactly what we need. You've had some outlandish ideas before, but this is too much. I don't think it's crazy, George. You'll understand if I explain my reasoning. Yes, please explain. Explain how you intend to improve our relationship and ignite a spark in our lives by cheating on me. George, I will not cheat on you, she said. That is not what I am suggesting. Do you want to date other men like yourself? Date other men besides me? Yes, that's correct. What constitutes a true romantic date? Yes, that is the point, and a real date. How would you interact with someone if we were not married? I didn't think about it that way, but yes, this is a real date. So is he going to use you on the first date, or will you make him wait until the fifth, as you did with me? George, I said nothing about using it. Yes, but you specified a real date, as if you weren't married. On real dates, people make love. So you're saying that making love isn't on your list of dates? Well, that is not what I am saying. So you are using them? I did not say that either. I just wanted to say that I'm interested in seeing where dating goes and how relationships develop. So you don't just want to date a guy or guys, you also want to use them and build a relationship. George, you are only avoiding bringing up the points you want to make. Yes or no? Maggie, do you ever make love with your boyfriends? She paused. It's not all black and white. Yes or no? Yes, probably. So, then it is treason. No, it is not like that. How in the hell do you think that is not cheating? You meet a guy, set up a romantic date with him, and make love. This constitutes treason. I was infuriated. I was also losing my temper rapidly. Things could have turned out very badly if I hadn't been careful. Maggie tried to collect herself and remain calm. It irritated her when I lost my temper. It was as if she was attempting to demonstrate that she was more civilized than me. It won't be cheating, she reasoned, because you'll give me your consent and approval, and you'll be fully aware of who I've been with and what I've been doing. We'll go over all the details after I get home. Oh my God, I exclaimed, emphasizing each word. You want to not only cheat on me, but also turn me into a doll. What the hell makes you think I would ever agree to you dating or approve of you having sex with another person? What happened in your head that caused you to lose all understanding of reality? Do you really think I'm going to accept this shit? George, please try to remain calm so that we can talk. There's no need to shout or be vulgar. You're welcome. I stared at her. Did you really think I'd agree? I knew it would be difficult for you to accept, but you love me and are a reasonable person. You're a smart guy. I assumed and still believe you would calm down, understand the logic behind what is happening, and agree to support me. I am here to support you. Yes. While you're making love to other men, George, don't use them. If I just wanted to, I could do it for years with a large number of men. Damn that. I could do this with your brother, your closest friends, and your boss. They all pestered me several times, but I did not do it. I'd never cheat on you. I'd never do that to you. But you are offering to do it right now. No, honey. She attempted to correct me. This is not a hoax. This is not for me. This is for us. It will provide us with excitement, fun, and new experiences. Our bedtime routines will resume. I am going to live again. You'll feel it and be a part of it. Are we doing this together? What would you like me to do on dates with you? Well, no, I intended figuratively, not literally. You will stay at home and wait for me to go on a date, and when I return home, I will tell you every last detail. I suppose you want me to come down on you after he exploits you. She literally flushed. I couldn't believe it, but she genuinely wanted me to do it. Well, that would be the best way to express your love for me. That is something I will never, ever do, I informed her icily. Okay, let's skip that part, she suggested. If you don't want to ruin our marriage, you're not going to pass this up. It will not destroy our marriage. You are making love with another man, period. It is not going to be love, George. I will save it for you. I love you. I do not like him. It will simply be making love. Just making love? Yes. Simply making love. I stared at her silently for a few seconds. What exactly does that mean? It means I will have no feelings for him, and he will have no feelings for me either. We simply want to explore each other. There's nothing else. Simply making love, I repeated, reflecting on her words. Yes, so let me make sure I understand everything. Okay, take your time. You just want to make love with another man. I spoke slowly. If anything. Yes, she confirmed. So why is that? Why do you only want to make love to someone else? She hadn't already answered. For a change, I'll probably try something different. This means I'm not enough for you. It means that I am not meeting your needs. You aren't satisfied with making love to me, and you want to look for someone better. Wait, no, Maggie exclaimed. It is not like that at all. I enjoy making love to you. You are a wonderful lover. I do not want anyone better. If that were true, I explained judiciously, you wouldn't be looking for anyone else. The only reason you want to make love to someone else, even if it is just to make love, is to advance, to find someone better than what you currently have. That is not true at all, she countered without backing up her statement. Oh, of course, I replied. Think about it. If you love sushi and have discovered the best sushi restaurant in the world, and it is right next door, but there are 20 other sushi restaurants in the city, why waste your time trying them all when you already have the best sushi right here? She paused for a few seconds before responding, most likely to try different sushi. But why? If you know this is the best place, do you want to go somewhere you know won't be as good or satisfy you as it should be? I asked rhetorically and continued. Of course not. You would only try other places if you believed that things could improve. In some ways, one of the other places could be better than the one you adore. I truly don't understand. She expressed her dissatisfaction. If all you want to do is make love, why would you want to do it with someone else? If you were satisfied with our bed life, And if I satisfied you, then all you want is to make love. Why not just make love with me? We rarely make love. So if all you want is more lovemaking, we can do it more often. But no, you'd rather do it with someone else, who may be better, but also potentially worse. Obviously, you want to do this with someone else because it's more than just making love, or you're not happy making love with me. Do you think he could improve? I don't know, she replied, perplexed. You're confusing me, but you're not fine, so it's simply making love, right? Yes. How many times must I repeat this? Yes, it's simply making love. Okay, if that's correct, I have a solution. I grinned. She appeared to perk up, and there was a gleam of hope in her eyes. What is it? If you only want to make love, I'm willing to let you do so. She appeared stunned. Will you allow me? Yes, I will hire a male escort to come here and use you. I mentioned an escort. Why do I need an escort? Are you crazy? Because it's simply making love. I retorted, because he's a random person, you won't recognize him. It is going to be bam bam. Thank you, sir. And he'll leave. So you can't risk physical intimacy causing unexpected feelings. You're referring to me as a cheat. I don't want to have sex with an unknown man. I need some sort of connection with this person. I am not just a piece of meat. Exactly. I grinned. It implies that it's more than just making love. You don't simply want to make love. You want more. You want to make love with a particular person because you have chemistry with them. Her face turned red again, and she couldn't respond. Finally, she responded, Maybe that's partly true, but it doesn't mean anything. I couldn't help laughing. What? Yeah, it means nothing. For whom does it mean nothing to me? For him. We understand it's just a bad thing. He understands that I love you and is not looking for such a relationship. Do you actually believe that? It means nothing to you. I understand, but why do it if it doesn't mean anything? Yeah, Maggie, you're not making any sense. Why would you do something you know won't mean anything? If it has no meaning, you should avoid doing it. You want to do this to him because it has real meaning. She moaned and buried her face in her hands. It definitely means nothing. This means a lot to me. You understand that making love is the highest form of intimacy. When we married, we agreed to only have this level of intimacy with one another. Do you want to throw it away? To experiment on someone else? You want to explore this intimacy with someone other than me. You are dissatisfied with this intimacy with me, and our bedtime routine does not satisfy you. So, do you want an update? No, that is not the point. So you're hoping to make love to him to ensure that he isn't as good as me. She simply looked at me. Of course not. I spoke sharply. You wouldn't go into this expecting it to be the same or worse than me. You only want to do this because you have hope. No, because you already believe it will be far superior to what we have. I do not know, she shouted. I've never considered it that way. You have completely confused me. And what happens when you finish and come to my house after he blows your mind and makes you happier than I am? Have you thought about it? She began but paused. I'd never thought about it. What do you mean? I mean, how can you expect your feelings for me to remain the same after having the best lovemaking experience with someone else? You claim you are doing this to spice up our bedtime routine, but if he is better than me, you will never want to make love with me again. You will want to bring him along. You will miss him. Even worse, I will know you want him. When you apologize for occasionally using me, how can we continue? We will continue as before. Maggie, how can I keep this up? What do you mean? How can I continue doing this if I'm not satisfying you enough to keep you at home? How can I kiss you knowing that another man kissed you and you preferred it over kissing me? How can I reach out to you knowing that you prefer his touch over mine? She stared at me silently. How can I make love to you again when I know you're constantly thinking about him? If making love to him is better than making love to me, how can you ever be satisfied with me again? You will think about him. I desire him. I did not marry you to be second fiddle to someone else. She shakes her head. But it will not be like that. If that isn't the case, why would you want this? Because you believe it will be an incredible lovemaking experience. You have never done anything like this with me before. Otherwise, you will not even consider it. When she did not respond, I continued. Do you know what the scariest thing is? I can't win in this situation. I adore you and think you are extremely beautiful. I have only ever wanted to make love to you. I enjoy making you happy. I thought we had amazing lovemaking. I thought we were good together, and we often want it, but you shut us down. It makes no difference whether we get along well together. You have a mental image of how great it will be with him. If we were the same size and gave you the same satisfaction, even if he isn't very good, you'll come to realize that you'd be better off with him. You might still believe he's better. I cannot compete. He wins regardless." She stared at me, speechless. I was beside myself with rage. "Who the hell put all this nonsense into your head? George, please. Maggie, fuck off. George, no, I am serious. Back off. This is absolute nonsense. There is no way I will let you date anyone. There is no way I'm going to sit at home and wait for you to finish with your lover. And if you ever thought I'd be a cuckold and let someone exploit you, you're not the woman I married 20 years ago. You're a crazed cheater who just ended her marriage." She was shocked to her core. I'd never said anything so harsh to her before. "George, you are overreacting." She spoke with tears streaming down her cheeks. "No, it is not," I responded calmly. My voice is as hard as ice. "You are overreacting. Get out of my home. I do not want you here anymore. You're correct. We will not last long. We won't live to be 20. We are now done. The fact that you proposed such a stupid fucking idea indicates that you have already deceived your mind and heart, if not your body. You are moving on. So fuck you. I'm not going anywhere," she declared defiantly. "This is simply ridiculous. I live here. I am your wife. We live here. You cannot tell me where I can be. Now calm down and let's talk about this like adults." "Okay then. Okay, stay here." I grabbed my keys and wallet from the counter and walked through the kitchen to the garage. "Where are you going?" "What is it?" she pleaded desperately. She was crying and staring at me in shock. "Anywhere except here. It stinks in here. Please do not leave, George. Talk to me. We can make it through this." I paused and looked at her. "I will give you one chance to stop me. I will stay if you swear to me that you will never discuss this idea or anything similar again, that you will not date another man, never make love to anyone except me, staying faithful and devoted to me for the rest of our lives, as we swore at our wedding. You will never suggest it, and you will never want to do it." She stared at me. I saw the confusion in her mind, the inner conflict. She was enraged and on the verge of breaking down. "George, please, I believe this could be beneficial to us." "No," I said, turning to open the garage door. Maggie yelled at me to stay. "Please wait, I promise. I swear I will not talk about it anymore. Just please do not leave." I turned around again. There was something else I needed to express. "I'm not sure who put you up to it or filled your head with this nonsense, but I will find out if you have already dated or made love to him. I will divorce you. That is for sure." "Damn it, we aren't dating, George. We did not do anything. But there are we. Good. Go use your boyfriend. You've probably done it already, and we know. I swear, if you want to save what remains of our marriage, you should not lie to me. No more secrets, no more lies, no more cheating." "Not at all, George. I swear. We were just discussing it. You were chatting with another man about using him, so this whole conversation, this entire ambush, everything confirms my point of view. You want me to agree to let you use a specific guy with whom you have already planned everything. You disgust me." I told her, and she cried even harder. "I cannot look at you right now. I am sorry, George. I didn't expect you to take it that way. He told me that you might be upset at first, but you'll eventually come to your senses." "Upset? Who the hell is he?" She paused again. I looked at the open garage door. "By not telling me everything." "You prefer him over me, Stephen?" she said. "Stephen Archer is the consultant you've been working with for the past few months. You introduced me to this guy at Houlihan's dinner party." "Yes, that's him." We collaborated closely and began talking. I needed to sit down. I closed the door, returned to the table, and sat across from Maggie. "Tell me exactly what I said. That is it." "What is it?" she asked. "Yes, I want to know everything you said, did, and know about this asshole." She nodded. "Can I sit down? Is this still your house?" I said. She nodded again and sat down, continuing to explain what had brought us to this point. I spent the next 2 hours listening to my wife discuss Stephen Archer and his seduction. This has been going on for months now. He started slowly, gradually brainwashing my wife into accepting his shit. He never pushed too hard or tried to be too explicit, knowing she was astute enough to know if he would do it. So far, she claims, they have only talked. She had not even kissed him. This was part of his plan. Without making any overt attempts to establish physical contact. She believed his intentions were pure. He planned to wait until I agreed to make my move. By the time she had finished her story, I was convinced of two things. One, my marriage is very likely over even if she never speaks to Stephen again. Second, Stephen had to bear the consequences of his actions. I needed a plan to deal with both issues, but I had no idea what to do with either. I needed to buy time. "Are you still angry at me?" Maggie asked Maggie. "I'm not sure how I feel," I told her. "It's difficult to put into words. A large part of me is hurt and angry that you don't care enough about our marriage to consider what Stephen is proposing. If you want to spice up our bedtime routine, this is not the way to go. There are at least 100 other options you could consider first. For example, do not turn me down every time I try to play around." Maggie lowered her eyes and appeared distressed. I exhaled. Another part of me sympathizes with the fact that you were duped by a skilled manipulator. So a part of me wants to accept your innocence and resume our lives. Maggie smiled as she replied, "I'd really like that." "Can we do this and forget that I mentioned it at all?" "No, we cannot." I responded honestly. "A part of me still wants to leave and never see you again. I may be able to overcome your betrayal, but it will take time and effort on your part." Maggie nodded and asked if anyone thought this idea was funny. "Oh my God, Maggie," I shouted. "Are you really asking that after everything I've said?" "I apologize," she said shyly, lowering her gaze. "I apologize. So what will happen now?" "I honestly don't know," I responded. "I need time to consider what I want to do with it. The fact that you are still considering doing this says a lot about you. I'm truly sorry. Please tell me you still do not want to get divorced. I don't know, but I believe it depends on you." "Really," I responded. "If I discover that you lied to me, I will divorce you. If you do not completely disable Stephen, I will divorce you. He is going to ask about it." "What do I tell him?" "You have to decide what you're going to tell him. Do you speak with him when you're not at work? Call, texting, or communicating on the computer?" "No, only a little bit," she explained. "We usually only talk at work. Stephen made it a rule not to contact each other outside of the office. However, I know Stephen will inquire about it first thing tomorrow. I don't know what to say. Should I tell him to forget about everything and never think about it again?" "Of course you must do this," I said, thinking about how I could get back at the man who wanted to use my wife. "Is he married?" I asked. Maggie nodded. "Yes," she spoke softly. "A few months ago, their second child was born." "Oh my God, Maggie!" I exclaimed. "He just had a baby and you're going to use him? How about his wife and family? Have you ever thought about them?" He told me. "She didn't mind him joking around. They have an open marriage. Did you believe him?" She blushed. I could tell she was starting to realize how stupid she had been. "Yes. I suppose I wanted to believe him. Now I realize how stupid that is." "Maggie," I said, gazing at her intently, "if we want to save our marriage, you must be on my team. Regardless of what I do or say, you must support me. If you hesitate or take his side, forget it. We can divorce and end our marriage. I'm your teammate, honey," Maggie reassured me. "I swear, you and our daughter are all that matters to me." "Wait here," I said, getting up and pulling out my laptop. I brought it and opened it. When I sat down beside my wife, "Have you ever viewed his Facebook page?" I asked. "Yes, a few times, but he rarely uses social media," she explained. I pushed the laptop towards her and instructed her to locate his page. She tapped the keys for a while before saying, "Here it is." There was very little information available to the public. Stephen's profile contained no relationship status, family photos, or a link to his wife. I did a LinkedIn search for Steve Archer and hit the jackpot. He was far more outspoken there than on Facebook. "Do you know what his wife's name is?" I asked Janet. Maggie responded. I quickly searched for Janet Archer and discovered two. "Are you sure if she's a realtor or a recruitment specialist?" He informed me that she owns a posh real estate agency that specializes in multi-million-dollar homes. Maggie replied, and I clicked on the realtor link. Her profile opened, and a lovely young blonde smiled back at us. "Is this her?" I inquired, looking at the attractive wife of my elderly wife's future lover. Maggie replied, "I don't think so. I've never seen a picture of her, but it doesn't resemble the woman he described to me. He informed me that she was old, fat, and unattractive." I giggled. Of course he did it. Janet Archer was young, in excellent shape, and stunningly attractive. I opened her Facebook page. "Well," I said, "based on her public profile." She has a husband, Steve, and 2 daughters, Selena and Catherine. Does this sound familiar? Yes, Maggie replied, looking at the woman's photos. These are the names of Stephen's daughters. I scrolled down and discovered a plethora of photographs of a happy family. Some of the latter appear to come from a youth cheerleading competition. It showed a lovely Janet and her daughters. Steve was standing next to them, smiling into the camera. Maggie gave a gasp. That's him? No offense, Maggie, I explained, pulling out photos of Steve and his wife. Why would he go to all this trouble to sleep with you when he already has a hot woman at home? She seemed offended. Okay, I am. I don't know, she replied. She looked like she was about to cry again. That was not what he told me about her at all. You mentioned they had an open marriage, correct? I asked. That is exactly what he told me, Maggie responded, not so confidently. I whistled after discovering some photos of Janet in a bikini. Perhaps I overreacted, I said, gazing at Janet Archer's lovely face. Maybe I'm looking at everything wrong. What do you mean? Maggie asked. Do you have his mobile number? Maggie gave me a nervous look when I asked her. You're not going to call him, right? Well, I responded, that's correct. Maggie appeared stunned. I can't do it. Wait, you said you were on my team. I said you had to support me regardless of what I did. She nodded. Yes, that's correct. So, are you on my team or not? Yes, she admits. Okay, I said, then call him. Okay, I will do that. Maggie agreed, but hesitated. Before I do so, may I ask why? I smiled. So Stephen wants to use my wife, right? Maggie nodded. So if I let him use you, isn't it fair to use his wife? Wait, what? Maggie exclaimed. Do you intend to use his wife? Well, look at her, I said, pointing to a photo of Janet Archer wearing a very tight bikini. She's extremely attractive. Maggie said, This should never happen. I laughed. You said you wanted to spice up our bedtime routine, correct? Maggie agreed, crossing her arms over her chest. That is what I did. And you were going to revive her using Stephen? I explained. Wouldn't it be even more interesting if I included his wife? After all, you mentioned that they have an open marriage. Yes, but Maggie muttered. It's not that you use a fool. Oh, wait, I said, smiling. Is she a cheat? What defines her as a cheater? She is married to Stephen but can make love to other men. You're married to me, and you want to be able to make love with other men under that definition. Doesn't this make you want to cheat? Maggie glared at me. No, this is not the same thing. So why not? I asked. What is the difference, if any? How are Janet and I different from you and Stephen? She's too beautiful, Maggie said. So it's okay to use someone ugly? I asked. No, that is not what I intended, Maggie responded, looking nearly defeated. It's simply different. Are you concerned that I will enjoy using it too much? Maybe. Or that once I have it, I won't want to use you again. Maybe. Perhaps you're afraid that if I use her while I'm with you, I'll think of her. Yes. Damn it, Maggie confessed reluctantly. I understand, okay? I understand what you're trying to do. I thought we had agreed to forget about everything. Yes, but that was before I knew what she looked like, and before I really considered your offer. So you think you can use a hot girl? You suddenly decided I could use Stephen. Damn right, I exclaimed enthusiastically. So why not? You are an ass, Maggie said. Wait, am I an ass? Because I want Janet. You were the one who preferred to use someone else. I'm simply agreeing with what you wanted. No, you are attempting to destroy what I wanted. So you want to make love to others but don't want me to reciprocate. You're just trying to confuse me. I told you it was not like that, Maggie exclaimed, on the verge of tears again. Maggie, please calm down and let us discuss this like adults, I replied, using her own words against her. I'm starting to see how this could benefit us. Maggie said, I do not want to do this. You talked me out of it. I agreed it was a mistake. This was a mistake. Let us forget about everything. Take your time. I found his number and began dialing Maggie's phone. Let us call your lover and hear what he has to say. Maggie screamed. Hang up the phone. Do not call him. Shoo! I spoke softly, gesturing for my wife to remain silent. It's okay, honey. The telephone is already ringing. I switched on the speakerphone so Maggie could hear both sides of the conversation. Maggie, I asked you not to call me at home. Hello, is this Stephen Archer? I asked, speaking clearly and slowly. There was a long pause, followed by a click, and the connection was cut. How strange. I spoke to my wife. We've switched off. I better call you back. Maggie attempted to pick up the phone. "Please do not do this." "Hush," I said, putting my phone away. "You might feel like you don't want to do this anymore. I do not know." "Hello, Stephen. This is Maggie's husband." "Are you there?" "Yes, I'm here. What do you want?" Stephen inquired with obvious concern. "Oh, is this truly the wrong time?" I asked. "What do you want?" He repeated it angrily. "So," I began, "Maggie told me how you asked her out for a date." There was silence on the other end of the line for a few seconds. "So what?" he finally said. "And I think that's a fantastic idea." Maggie grabbed my arm and tried to interrupt what I was saying. I shushed her and continued. "Of course, I'm referring to certain parameters and agreements." "Parameters and agreements?" Stephen asked, perplexed. "Yes," I responded. "I mean, if you're going to use my wife, I want to make sure everything is completely open. No secrets, right?" "Yes, I suppose so," Stephen replied. His voice did not sound confident. "I mean, we don't want to ruin a marriage by lying and cheating. I adore Maggie and don't want to lose her, so I agreed, as long as we all communicate openly and are aware of what is going on." "Cool. Yes, of course," Stephen responded. "This makes sense." Maggie looked at me with her mouth open. She shook her head and said, "Baby, I do not want to do this." I waved it off dismissively. "Great." I continued my conversation with Stephen. "Why don't you run after Janet and activate the speakerphone?" "What?" Stephen asked, surprised. "Why aren't you calling your wife? You're familiar with Janet, the mother of your two daughters, Selena and Catherine, and the woman to whom you are openly married, so she can hear every detail." "Listen, asshole." Stephen let out a growl. "I'm not sure what kind of game you're playing." I cut him off. "Stephen?" "Stephen, I'm not playing," I told him. "Maggie told me that you and Janet are swingers and you don't care who she makes love with. We've been watching her bikini photos on Facebook, and I have to say that I'm going to have a good time with her while you do your thing, my wife. What are you doing now? What is it?" he asked shrilly. "I am going to use Janet, your wife. You are going to use Maggie, my wife. That's what swingers do, right? Wife swap. Bastard!" "Do not involve my wife in this," Stephen asked. "Stephen, my boy," I replied calmly, "it is a little late for that. You have spent the past few months seducing my wife. Wasn't Janet pregnant with Selena for most of the time? Happy birthday. I bet Janet is back to normal and ready. Shut the fuck up," he shouted. "I advised you not to involve Janet in this. Oh, you mean she doesn't know you want to use Maggie? Don't you have an open marriage?" I looked at Maggie. She cried, covering her face with her hands. I heard a female voice in the background. "Darling, what happened? Who is this?" "No one." "It is all right. Get the girls prepared to leave." Stephen spoke to his wife. "Oh yes," I started. "Today is a huge day. Catherine has a cheerleading tournament this afternoon." "How the hell did you know that?" he asked. "It's amazing how much shit you can learn on Facebook." I chuckled. "I've got an idea." I waited for him to respond for a few seconds while he considered my words. "What is the idea? What is it?" he finally asked. "Why don't Maggie and I join you and Janet at the tournament? Then we can tell her about all the details she overlooked. After that, we can go to the bar for a few drinks, get to know each other, and then return here to make love all night. I will even let you and Maggie use the master bedroom." Stephen growled into the phone and answered in a harsh whisper. "Listen, motherfucker, stay away from my wife and children. I will use you if I see you anywhere nearby." "Stephen," I warned him, "don't get too upset. You agreed that there would be no secrets and that everyone, including Janet, should be aware of what we plan to do." "Right, fuck you, asshole," he yelled. "Don't call me ever again." "Okay, I will just call Janet," I responded quickly before he could hang up. "Wait," Stephen let out a bark. "How did you get her number?" "Steve, it doesn't matter," I told him. "It is critical that everyone understands what you were doing and what your intentions were with my wife." There was another long pause. "I want you to stay away from my wife, bastard. If I hear you were in the same room as her, I'll go to Janet and tell her everything you've done. Understood?" He responded modestly. "I understand. We work together. I'm not sure if I can completely avoid her. Maggie will be on vacation for the next 2 weeks," I explained to him. "When she returns, you will have to transfer to another company. You are a consultant. Simply inform your bosses that one of the women got to know you too well, and you should be transferred for the betterment of the case. I guarantee they'll have you out of there by the time she comes back." "What if I don't do it?" he asked. I turned to face Maggie, my wife. Call Janet and explain everything. She looked at me incredulously. Of course, I was exaggerating. Stephen was unaware that I did not have Janet's phone number. I motioned for Maggie to join in. Okay, honey, she said through tears. Wait, Stephen shouted. Okay, I will tell them about it tomorrow morning. All right, I responded. Maggie was incorrect in her assessment of your intelligence. And one final thing. Maggie can hear you now. I apologize to my wife. Stephen was visibly angry. He took a deep breath and spoke briefly. I am sorry, Maggie. Before she could respond, I said, Don't mess with my wife again, and now I recommend you prepare to take your family to a cheerleading tournament. Good luck, Catherine. I hung up, dropped the phone on the counter, and turned to Maggie. She looked at me with puppy dog eyes. I'm so sorry, she began. I raised my hand to stop her. Tomorrow you'll need to call your boss and inform him that you have an urgent family matter and need to take 2 weeks off. I instructed her. She lowered her gaze and nodded. Now pull your pants down and bend over the table so I can properly rape you, I demanded. Maggie looked into my eyes and only saw anger. She bit her lip, drew her pants and panties down to her ankles, turned away from me, and leaned over the kitchen table, pushing aside our uneaten breakfast. I came up behind her and slapped her bare ass hard, leaving a bright red palm print as she screamed in agony. The only date you'll have is with me. I growled, and then used my wife more aggressively than ever before. Here is the next story. The best part about having to attend my wife's office party was that I got to drive my Challenger. The worst part was that going faster meant getting there faster. The meeting took place in a cabin in the woods, which was accessible via a 20-mile road. There are no stop signs, traffic lights, or traffic, only an open road waiting for the Dodge to do its thing. It also meant the absence of gas stations and convenience stores. Donna and I have been estranged since our daughter's marriage. I had hoped for the opposite, but this was not to be. Donna insisted that I accompany her to this ceremony despite the fact that I had expressed my objections. She used to walk alone. Donna liked to drink, but I did not. I sometimes drank beer. She was also a social butterfly, whereas I wasn't. For the past year, I suspected she was having an affair. By this point, I didn't care. I believe this was one of the reasons we drifted apart. I was waiting, hoping for a way out of an unpleasant relationship. I needed a way to close this case. I must admit that my wife's decision to seek out juicier pastures was most likely motivated by me. I am, in some ways, an unusual minimalist. I grew up in a very poor household. My brothers and I had far fewer possessions than most other kids our age, including bicycles, toys, pets, fancy electronic gadgets, and so on. It felt almost like being an Amish without religion. I wasn't a fool, and I knew how the real world worked, but I couldn't bring myself to accept it. I understood how important it was to stay out of debt. It was necessary to pay the bills, and it was prudent to save money for retirement in order to live a comfortable, minimalist lifestyle. You don't have to be a fanatic, but you should keep yourself in check by allowing yourself some indulgences. You can appear normal to the majority of people. My greatest weakness was marriage and family. It was difficult for me to find a woman who I felt could tolerate my eccentricities and accept my uniqueness. Donna came from the same background as me and used to live a modest lifestyle. She didn't react the same way I did, but she could tolerate it. The longer we were married, the more she appeared to return to normal. I mean, she has become less frugal. I didn't like it, but I understood, especially after the girls were born, in order to avoid appearing strange. We purchased a small, practical home and began to dress better. Donna occasionally did her hair and improved her grooming and makeup skills. We have 2 smartphones from last year's models. When the girls grew up, Donna began working. It was an office job paying the minimum wage. Transportation was necessary, so we got her a small Honda Civic, just like mine. Her salary almost fully covered the cost of a car, lunches, and a new wardrobe. My name is Will Smith. It is the most common name one can have. I work for a local company that makes industrial compressors. The work is monotonous, but I enjoy it. I was pleased with both the position and the salary. Sometimes I was offered a promotion, but I declined. I did not tell Donna anything. I hid my second slip from my wife. I believed it was prudent to save for retirement at every opportunity. I purchased 1 ounce of Krugerrand gold. I had over 30 in my basement safe, and I was only getting started. Finally, I allowed myself a 1970 Dodge Challenger. Donna did a good job for Gilbert Industrial. Throughout the first year, she received regular bonuses and promotions. She talked a lot about her work, but it eventually faded away. She rarely mentions her job or the people she works with anymore. I knew there was something wrong, but I couldn't figure out what. I hoped to gain a better understanding of the situation tonight. The party had a party atmosphere. It was a weekend event. I was uncomfortable even going there. I've dated all of her companions at some point, and none of them were particularly appealing to me. We exited the highway at Holbrook, and I was finally able to let the Challenger accelerate. Donna was uncomfortable with the speed, but she remained silent. Yes, I was speeding, but I didn't mind. Bill, why the rush? We've got enough time to get there. Why don't you slow down a little? I am not eager to get there. You know I didn't want to go at all. I am just using this time to clean the engine. The car must run from time to time. Please try not to dampen my mood. This weekend is crucial for my career. Why? What exactly are you talking about? Why is it so important that I attend this corporate event? I do not understand, Bill. You must be fully aware of my new position within the company, so that you can give me the attention and assistance I require to do my job. I still do not understand. I'm sure Mrs. Simpson will be able to explain everything to you when we arrive. Marge Simpson was married to Glenn Roberts, the company's president, and Simpson. It was old money, old business. I've always supported you in the past. What's changed? My new position entails a variety of unique responsibilities. Marge suggested that you gradually get to know them in order to fully comprehend them. It may be difficult to understand at first, but she assures me that you will eventually understand. By the time we reached the cabin, my adrenaline was pumping. Donna's intended message is obvious. The weekend promises to be interesting. When we arrived, Donna entered the cabin and left me to carry the bags. I felt as though I was being put in my place. Hey, that was Toby Wallace, the only decent employee in the office. Hello, Toby. How are you? Toby introduced me to his wife, Bonnie. They were sitting on the front porch, but it appeared that everyone else was indoors. I looked around the parking lot and estimated that there were approximately 16 cars and one battered old truck at the end. We spent the next 5 minutes discussing the Challenger. What are you doing outdoors? Why aren't you and Bonnie in with the others? That is not our type of person, Mr. Smith. We had planned to leave early, but Mrs. Simpson insisted that we stay. We arrived early today to help with the arrangements. All of the suppliers departed about an hour ago. You'll need to explain yourself. What's happening? Something fishy, but I don't know what it is. I don't want to upset you, but I believe it has something to do with your wife. Are you staying for the entire weekend? No. That is why I parked my truck along the side of the road, so I won't have to worry when we're leaving. It became more interesting by the minute. Okay, I'd better take everything to our room. Please let me know before you leave. Okay, of course, Mr. Smith. Be careful. Do not do anything stupid. Luckily, there were only 2 small backs. Mrs. Simpson caught my eye as I entered the cabin, smiling and waving. Donna was waiting for me at the top of the stairs, looking slightly annoyed that I had taken so long to get in. It is about time, Bill. We have a few hours to get ready for the evening. Get yourself cleaned up and dressed properly. It's going to be a special night, and I want everything to go perfectly. If you don't mind, I'll take a short walk around the house to relax. I will be back soon. I noticed myself grinning as I exited the room. There was a slight chill, which made my walk more enjoyable. According to my calculations, there were actually 16 cars. They were mostly Mercedes, with a few Jaguars and a Lexus. 4 of the vehicles displayed out-of-state license plates. I was perplexed, trying to figure out how a woman in my wife's position could match people of that caliber. She, or rather we, were clearly above the level of these people. Something wasn't right. I saw Toby and Bonnie loading their bags into the truck. I waved and approached to chat. I see Mrs. Simpson has decided to let you go. Not really. We're kind of slipping away. Mr. Smith, I'm not comfortable here. Toby suggested we stay, but I talked him out of it. Bonnie hastens to add. Could you do me a favor by staying here until the evening buffet is over? I'm also worried, and I'd appreciate it. I'm not sure what's going on, but I don't like it. Great minds think alike. Is that correct, Bonnie? She blushed slightly at my poor joking attempt. I believe we can. At this point, there will be crabs and oysters. Toby, I think I'll enjoy it. I dressed because my wife insisted, before we got to the buffet. The hostess took my arm and guided me to a quiet alcove. "We are delighted that you have decided to come tonight to support Donna. This is a significant milestone in her career, and she needs your full support. The wage and benefit increases are significant, and I am confident you will be pleased with them." Excuse me for asking, but what position are we discussing? Donna was evasive when I asked her about it. She usually just shrugs it off and says I should wait until the evening. It's okay. William, I believe she just wants to surprise you. You have not responded to my question. There is no official name. I believe you can simply refer to her as a personal assistant. I understand. Well, the buffet looks good. Thank you for your explanation, Mrs. Simpson. Marge, call me Marge. I spent the next hour or so testing everything on the line. Donna was busy speaking with important people, so Toby, Bonnie, and I were able to spend a little extra time together. Mrs. Simpson entered just as we were packing up. William, Donna mentioned that you arrived in your sports car tonight. I was wondering if you could give us a quick run and a drink. I smiled and nodded. There are 3 cases of wine at the ABC store in Holbrook. They've already been paid for, so all you need to do is come and get them. There should be no problems. But if there are, please call me. Remember to bring your phone with you. I'd be delighted to, Marge. I'll let Donna know and then leave. When she left, I glanced at Toby. I'll meet you outside in 5 minutes. Donna just smiled when I told her Mrs. Simpson had asked me for assistance. Her only comment was, "Don't forget your phone." It's interesting how they both focused on the same thing. Toby, I need a favor. He smiled as I handed him the keys to the Challenger. Are you serious? Go to Holbrook and purchase 3 cases of wine from the ABC store for Mrs. Simpson. I have a feeling that there will be some sort of issue that will cause a delay, if you get what I mean. Toby smiled and nodded. Here is my phone. Simply put it on the dashboard. If he calls, do not answer. Whatever you do, do not turn it off. Any questions? How long do you want us to be away? At least 2 hours. Also, fill up the gas tank before you return. Enjoy it. It was chilly outside, but I had the foresight to wear a comfortable jacket. Now I could only wait and watch from various positions on the back porch. You could see the majority of the interior of the house. A thermos of coffee would be extremely useful, but I did not plan ahead of time. I found a convenient location from which I could look inside without being noticed. Donna was the focus of attention. She was smiling, laughing, and embarrassed, just like a movie star. About 20 minutes later, Mrs. Simpson and Donna examined Donna's cell phone closely. I understood exactly what they were doing. I am checking my location. Thanks to Toby, I'm almost at Holbrook. They both smiled as Mrs. Simpson raised her hand and started speaking. Unfortunately, I couldn't understand what was being said, but everyone in the room seemed to quietly agree with what they were hearing. It was like a small applause. Glenn Roberts and Simpson approached and took Donna's hand. They started up the main staircase and then stopped. He raised his and her hands in the air, as if in victory salute, and they both laughed as they climbed the stairs. I could hear cheers throughout the room. There was about an hour and a half until the Challenger returned. I've decided to take my time and enjoy life. I always carried my trusty pocket knife, which was made of good steel and had a sharp blade. I looked around and decided to start with the cars closest to my house. I took my time. There was no hurry. I carefully placed each valve stem in my jacket pocket. I did not want to lose anything, nor did I want to clog the driveway to the Simpsons' house. 16 machines and 64 valve rods. I had about an hour left. What shall I do? What shall I do? 4 cars were locked. All the others were open. So I started again with the ones closest to the cabin and removed the registration sheets. Some wore visors, but the majority were in glove boxes. I had no idea what I was going to do with them, but I figured they might be useful in the future. There were still 30 minutes until Toby returned. I decided it was necessary to remove the valve rods from the spare parts. I had access to the cars, which meant I had access to the trunks. 20 minutes later, I had 10 additional valves. 2 cars did not have spare tires. I knew it was petty and childish, but it gave me a small sense of satisfaction. I'm not a fan of confrontation, so everything I did or intended to do was negative and mean. I had no issues with self-esteem, so I didn't feel the need to appear brave or heroic. I'm going to let all of the alpha males take over this position. 20 minutes later, the Challenger returned. Toby and Bonnie appear to be enjoying their ride. He confirmed that, as expected, there was a delay at the ABC store, which appeared to have been planned. Nobody called my cell phone while they were gone. I turned it off and removed the SIM card. They couldn't wait to be home. I thanked Toby, wished him a safe journey, and strongly advised him to find a new job as soon as possible. I'm sure the wine cases were very expensive. This problem was simple to solve. I put all 3 boxes on the lodge's porch. I did not want to be accused of stealing in any way. The trip home was relaxing. There wasn't much in the house that mattered to me: several personal papers, a laptop, and Krugerrands. I considered setting fire to the house before leaving, but doing so would make Donna a martyr. I did not want to do that. 2 hours later, I was on my way. I didn't feel compelled to leave a traditional note or engagement ring, allow her to figure it out for herself. I was in no hurry and had no specific goal in mind. I drove for 2 days. On Monday morning, I called work to warn them. I requested that my last check be sent to my parents in Carlisle. They were upset that I left without warning. I apologized but did not explain anything. You can always rely on a good breakfast at the Waffle House along the way. I purchased a local merchandiser newspaper and discovered an interesting advertisement requesting assistance for a local supermarket. They were looking for a man to load the shelves around 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. After breakfast, I checked the market. It was in the eclectic old neighborhood of Chattanooga. I spent the next hour driving around the neighborhood. There were numerous old craftsman cottages and mobile homes in the immediate area. I could have been content with a small trailer, but I was hoping for a step up. Then I stumbled upon a sign offering to rent an apartment in the garage. I hadn't asked about the job yet, but I didn't want to lose my apartment in the garage. The garage was not included in the price, but when I offered an extra $50 per month, they accepted. It was a small 1-bedroom apartment without a shower. It was poorly furnished: a bed, a chest of drawers, and a table with chairs. The rent was reasonable and the location was suitable, so I accepted it. I will address the bathroom issue later. At least I had a garage for the Challenger. The situation at the supermarket was somewhat different. They had a lot of applicants, but not enough that they felt safe leaving them alone in the store overnight. I was forthright in explaining my position to the owner. What ultimately secured this job for me was my offer to work black time without benefits and for $1 less than they wanted to pay. They did not even ask for my social security number. I was happy, and they were too. It was a 10-minute walk from our apartment. I spent the rest of the day settling into my new home. The landlord kindly gave me his internet access code. After a quick stop at the local Goodwill, I had some cooking utensils and a small microwave oven. I also have bedding and cleaning supplies. That evening, I canceled my insurance policies. I decided not to deal with banks or credit cards. Who knows what they can do to cause harm? Both of our daughters got married. It made my departure slightly easier. There are no grandchildren yet, but I'm confident it won't be too long. I called my daughter Laura and informed her that I was fine. I asked her to be prepared to assist her mother if needed. Laura knew I'd left, but Donna didn't tell her anything else. She promised to tell her sister Linda. I deleted all calls from my wife's phone and turned it off again. I needed a shower, perhaps tomorrow. Not everything was perfect. I needed to find a safe location for my gold. I understand that what I had was not considered essential, but it was important to me. For some strange reason, I acquired a safe in Huntsville, Alabama. I hoped they wouldn't connect him with me in Chattanooga. Of course, I was completely wrong, but I wanted to try. It took nearly 2 hours to drive, but I decided to sell. The garage door in the apartment was fairly secure, but I installed a new deadbolt and heavy-duty lock to ensure my safety. It did not take me long to adjust to my new job. A man worked with me for the first 3 nights before leaving me alone. After the first 2 weeks, I had everything under control, for $20 per month. I subscribed to the Planet Fitness Club, which solved my shower problem. I started work at 10 p.m. and finished at 6. Then it was a 20-minute jog or 30-minute walk to the Planet. Initially, I only used the shower, but I eventually began to use some exercise equipment. By the end of the first month, I was working out in the gym for nearly 2 hours per day. I felt better and had lost some weight. I never considered myself overweight, but I was a little flabby. I was pleased with my new job. It was monotonous but also different. It is difficult to explain, but I am confident you will understand what I mean. I finished my job and was left alone. The gym was also a good option. I decided which exercises I preferred and which I should avoid. I didn't own a television, but I did have a used desktop computer with a good monitor. I didn't cook much, but I noticed that my eating habits had changed slightly. Although it wasn't my intention, I found myself gravitating toward a keto diet. After 3 months, I felt better and had lost weight. It's time to contact the daughters again. This time, I called Linda. "Hello, Linda, this is your dad. Okay, it's about time. We were all concerned about you. Are you okay?" "Yes, everything's fine. Do not worry about me. I've always been capable of taking care of myself. I'm just calling to make sure your mother is okay. Mom is doing great. She appears to have received a promotion at work and is very happy there. She is, however, extremely angry with you. She claimed that you dumped her at a promotion celebration and then left home like a resentful little boy. Here are the words she used. She claimed you were jealous of her success. I'm sorry, but I can't add anything until she's prepared to tell you the truth. That is all I have. She stated that things are going badly without your income, but she is coping with her raise. Well, I'm happy for her. Has she told you about her new job?" "Only that she earns more money and travels frequently." I did not respond after a brief pause. Linda inquired, "Are you coming home for Christmas?" "I do not think so. I will try to send something for you and Laura." "We don't need anything, Father. We would rather you were here. I apologize. And now I need to go give Laura my regards." I felt a little depressed. I had a feeling my daughters didn't understand the situation and blamed me for everything. I was unhappy about it, but I didn't feel compelled to explain myself. My wife showed no remorse. My daughter's words left me feeling bitter. Donna was doing well without me. I did not understand why she wanted me to stay at home. I spent the weekend feeling depressed. My beer consumption was increasing. As the weeks passed by, I discovered that everything was going well. I did a good job and received an unexpected promotion. They gave me complete freedom to carry out my duties. In a very short time, I streamlined and improved the replenishment system. The store's general computer system was already doing this, but they seemed to prefer manual input. My living conditions were ideal for my needs and within my budget. With the proper lighting, I lost weight and began to gain muscle. I began to be skeptical of the six-pack. I stopped shaving, and I now had a full head of hair long enough for a small ponytail. My entire image seemed to have changed, and I appeared a little scary. My gym workouts became easier and longer. As an unexpected side effect, I met some new people at the gym. They weren't actually friends, but rather acquaintances. I was very cautious around women because I did not want any problems. It didn't matter to the guys. In fact, we frequently made fun of one another. However, a very unusual alliance has formed. Her name was Harry. At least that's what everyone called her. She wasn't particularly friendly and rarely spoke to anyone. I turned out to be the exception. She came in every morning and worked for at least 2 hours. It was a strenuous workout, not fancy yoga. I assumed she was around 45. She appeared sturdy and always wore sweatpants and a hoodie. All the other women flaunted their bodies in tight latex and skimpy outfits. Not Harry. I was the only male in the entire cage who she spoke to or even looked at. I didn't encourage her, but I didn't push her away either. To be honest, I felt a little flattered. I haven't contacted my daughters or wife in several months. I simply couldn't bring myself to do it. I traveled to Huntsville several times to add to my Krugerrand collection. Then things began to change. "Can I talk to you for a minute, William?" This was not the typical start of a conversation with Harry. She referred to me as William, whereas the other guys called me Bill. She had never called me by my first name before. "Of course, not a problem. Is there something I can do to help?" "Yes, it is." We sat down on a bench and got comfortable. "I have a corporate meeting on Friday evening and need an escort. I will cover all of the expenses. I just need you to come with me. I noticed you don't drive, so I will provide transportation if necessary. I can cover the costs." I hesitated, but she quickly picked it up. "I'm truly sorry. Did I do or say something incorrectly? Not at all. I only have a few skeletons in my closet, so to speak. If you can get around them, I'd be delighted to assist." "Okay. What are the problems?" "First of all, I am married." "Oh, shit. You've never mentioned your wife." "I think it's weird." "Not at all. I just wanted to let you know in advance. I haven't seen or spoken with my wife in over 9 months. I'm not even sure if I'm still married. Have you filed for a separation or divorce?" "No. What else? I do not have anything suitable. No suit, jacket, shirt, or ordinary shoes. I don't need all of this, so I don't own it. Not a problem, I can take care of it. That is why I'm asking for 1 week. I work at night, but I believe I can get a free evening without any problems. I am pleased that you will resolve this issue." She smiled as she said that. "So what else do you want me to shave?" "William, I like your beard and hair, but you seem a little sloppy. Do you mind if my stylist examines you on Friday afternoon?" "A stylist?" She smiled, and I groaned before nodding that everything was fine. That's how my relationship with Harry, also known as Harriet Parker, a lawyer, started on Tuesday. I ended up at Joss, a basic, not over-the-top establishment, but a cut above anything I'd ever seen. Harry had made plans for my visit in advance. As a result, I got 2 pairs of trousers, 2 sports jackets, a shirt, and several ties. I strained a little and added 2 turtleneck shirts to the pile. I've always liked them, and I figured they'd look good with sport coats. Harry has already paid for everything. On my way home, I picked up a new pair of decent shoes and some underwear. I needed new underwear because I had recently lost weight. The shoes were moccasin style, but still cool. On Friday, my stylist appointment went well. The guy who took care of me was pleasant and did an excellent job. He left me with a short, neatly trimmed beard and styled my ponytail into a short, modified mullet. I'm not sure what the proper term is, but it was long in the back. He assured me that it would be far easier to maintain. I liked how he didn't mention Harry much, but he did say I was lucky. Harry arrived at the apartment at precisely 6:00 p.m. She did not get out of the car, but she did make a short squeak. The Lexus seemed out of place in my neighborhood. I put on a gray jacket and turtleneck. I thought I looked good, but I don't have a point of comparison. I was grateful to her for driving the car because I didn't know my way around the city. "Harry, before we go in, could you please explain what I should and should not do tonight? The first hour or so will probably be spent communicating. You don't need to bother. The majority of the people here will be big, sensual snobs who you do not want to associate with. Avoid them if possible. Most importantly, I want you to stay close to me and avoid the snobs. Try not to get in your eyes, but don't allow anyone to push you. Make sure I always have a drink in hand. Ginger ale or mineral water. Maintain a friendly and pleasant demeanor while remaining calm. Let them believe we're a couple. I've never considered myself that type of guy. I do not have much experience with this type of thing. Can you handle it?" "Of course." "Will they be fed there within an hour?" "We will each receive a plate of $500 rubber chicken and listen to several speeches. When it is finished, they will give you something else. By the way, you look great." It was at that point that I realized I hadn't complimented her dress or hairstyle. I was totally out of my element. The first half of the evening when, as she predicted, I discovered that my role was easier than I anticipated. The room was full of single men, all dressed in expensive suits and wearing large watches. Harry looked great, and most people knew she wasn't married. Several of them came in and spoke with her briefly. They were testing the waters, so to speak. I found myself giving them sideways glances, like Charles Bronson. Surprisingly, it worked whenever I left her side to refill her drink. Another vulture swooped in. Some of them brought her drinks, which she calmly passed to me so I could order. Harry gave me a few looks and smiled. We finally sat down. 300 chicken dinners appeared from nowhere. The plate was pathetic. I'm not a picky eater, but this was something else entirely. I kept thinking about Harry's $500 leaned towards me. "William, would you like to leave this place?" I did not respond to her. I just stood up, took her hand, and we left quietly. I don't think anyone noticed us entering the garage. She kicked off her shoes and tossed the Lexus keys to me. "Find us some real food, William." 20 minutes later, we arrived at Hillbilly Willie's. We all had full plates and glasses of beer. While we were eating, I noticed something unusual. Her evening dress had long sleeves. The majority of the women's dresses featured short or no sleeves at all. Furthermore, she was barefoot, and it did not appear to bother her at all. Things quickly returned to normal. My evening with Harry was pleasant, but it did not result in any intimacy. We maintained our normal relationship at the gym. 3 weeks later, Harry had another appointment that required an escort. Of course, I agreed. I felt obligated to explain the situation to my boss, who found it quite funny. Given the circumstances, he told me that there was no need to request leave in order to leave him a note. He basically told me that I was responsible for my own time and should manage it accordingly. Harry's daily workouts at the gym were quite strenuous. Her heart was racing faster, and she was sweating slightly. She was always completely dressed. The majority of the females in the gym wore sports bras and shorts. Harry wore hoodies and long trousers. It didn't make sense, but I wasn't about to bring it up. Our second night was similar to the first, with the exception that there was no food and more alcohol. More alcohol resulted in more lizards scurrying around. Every other guy who approached her offered her a fresh drink. I spent the majority of the evening collecting and disposing of unwanted glasses. One of the most obnoxious guys finally approached me. I took him aside and quietly warned him that if he bothered my fiancée again, I would clean his face. He vanished for the rest of the evening, just like all the other scum. I had no idea I had become so formidable. We went out for sushi after the meeting and ended up eating $40 worth of sashimi. It was another enjoyable platonic evening. 2 days later, Harry caught me off guard as I was rowing. "Why didn't you tell me about our engagement?" I was a little embarrassed when one of my colleagues inquired about it. She did not wait for an answer and simply smiled. I called Laura. She claimed Donna was avoiding her and Linda. Laura only knew that Donna traveled a lot and that people frequently stayed at the house. I asked her if her mother had filed for divorce, but she didn't know. For whatever reason, he and Linda haven't spoken with Donna in a few weeks. I became angry. The more bottles I emptied, the worse things got. The following morning, I sent 74 valve rods to Glenn Simpson at Gilbert Industries. I added a short note. "Thank you for a fun evening." It had been over a year since that party, but I was confident he remembered it. I skipped the gym that day. I did not want to train with a hangover. The next day, Harry made a suggestion. I promised to explain everything to her the next time we ate dinner together. She picked me up at 6 p.m. Harry took me to Chris Steakhouse. It was my first time visiting such a location. She listened in silence and passed no judgment. I got back to my apartment just in time for the start of the work shift. The following day at the gym, Harry asked me another question. Do I know anyone who was inside the hut that night? I informed her that I had the names and addresses of everyone who was present. Her eyes glowed after our workout. She came to my house and I handed her an envelope containing 12 car registration sheets. She grabbed them and kissed my cheek. There are various types of lawyers. Harry was a personal injury attorney. She tried to explain it to me, but I simply smiled and asked how much it would cost. All I received in return was another kiss on the cheek. 3 days later, my daughter Linda called me. Donna called her to ask if she knew where I was. Donna was caught up in a problem at her workplace. She was unhappy and wanted to talk to me right away. Linda declined to tell her anything. I wonder if Glenn got those valve rods. I called Harry and told him I would pick her up in 20 minutes. Her office was situated in a prestigious shopping mall. It was cute, but not overly flashy. Harry has never faced a challenger. The sound of the engine drew a few curious looks from her office as she walked out to the car. I walked around the car, opened the door for her, and smiled at everyone watching. Harry was laughing as she entered the car. William played admirably. Well played. I assume you'll want an engagement ring now, in due time. Don't rush. I kept the Challenger under control until we got across the Tennessee River. Then I started to accelerate slightly. Highway 72 to Huntsville is a nice stretch of road, but not the best place to show off. 2 hours later, we were sitting in the dreamland. William. Everyone who was in the hut that evening was served today. What do you mean by serviced? This is a trial. The actual term is malicious behavior that contributes to the breakdown of a marriage. Does such a thing really exist? It appears that all of the necessary categories have been completed. Their actions were deliberate. It was extreme, and you experienced severe emotional distress. That must be why my wife was so upset. What exactly does it mean that your wife was upset? My daughter Linda called me today and said Donna needed to speak with me. There was a serious problem at work, and she was somehow involved. I do not know anything else. Glenn Simpson and Gilbert Industries are being sued for $1 million. The remaining 11 have claims for $100,000 each. I'm not trying to be a smartass or anything, but do you really believe this will work? Of course. Maybe it's not as easy as it appears, but I believe some interesting things could happen. We left the restaurant. I was a little nervous, so I casually asked Harry if she wanted to rent a room and return in the morning. I wish I could, but I cannot. If you prefer, we can leave earlier. That is not the point. Let's just leave. I will explain everything to you on the way home. The car was quiet for the first 20 minutes before it began to open. It appears that Harry weighed nearly 300 pounds 8 years ago. Instead of having bypass surgery, she decided to eat healthier and exercise more. She dropped 140 pounds. Unfortunately, she had 20 pounds of flabby skin. It took 5 surgeries to remove the excess flesh, and she now bears scars all over her body. Harry is a brave, outspoken woman, but she admits to being very shy about her scars. She avoided dating and all interactions with male friends. She felt at ease with me for some reason, which she couldn't explain. I dropped her off at home, walked her to the door, and gave her a gentle kiss on the cheek. She thanked me for the food and shed a small tear as I left. We continued our platonic encounters. We both seemed pleased with it. Nick Jack Market appeared to be popular among the locals. Within less than 2 years, they had opened 2 more stores and were not about to stop. The owners were serious when they offered me a full-time position as stock manager for all 3 locations. However, they insisted that I become a permanent employee, which required that I be fully legalized. It did not matter at the time, so I agreed. Harry was happy, and so was I. A few additional weeks have passed. I haven't heard from my daughters in a long time. Then I received a short message. Mom got fired. It made things slightly more complicated. Donna was no longer working, and I now had a steady job with a decent salary. I was afraid that I would be punished in the divorce. William, I have some good news for a change. Harry was serious, and I listened intently. 3 of the 11 people we sued settled their cases. What exactly does this mean? Because we filed a lawsuit for only $100,000, the insurance companies advised them to settle and avoid a public trial. It was covered by their insurance, so it was not a significant loss for them. You mean we can get some cash? William, I have already received 3 checks. Maybe there will be more of them. Do you believe this has anything to do with Donna's dismissal? Yes. Of course. Will it ruin my divorce? Have you already submitted your documents? No, not yet. I was going to ask you for help with this. Harry smiled. William, pack a small bag and prepare the Challenger. We are going to visit your wife. We will leave early Thursday morning. I smiled now. We left at 6 a.m. and checked into the Sheraton Hotel. 10 hours later, I called Linda and asked her to invite Donna and Laura for lunch at the Reading Motor the following day. The conversation at dinner was slightly awkward. Our conversation was diverse and confusing. Why? We both took care to avoid the elephant in the room. For over a year, we shared our first night together. We were friends with no benefits. The last thing I wanted was for her to be uncomfortable. Bill. However, I will not go into detail about the evening. I'll say that it wasn't as traumatic as we expected. We both got a little rusty, but we got through it successfully. She seemed relieved that I wasn't disgusted, and I was glad it wasn't as bad as she had made me believe. We were 2 lucky fools. We ate brunch in the morning. Donna and the girls were already waiting for us at the table. I was wearing one of my new sports coats and a dark turtleneck. I looked great. Harry wore one of her lightweight business suits, something like a casual professional. My wife and daughters were taken aback by what I said. Donna, Linda, Laura, this is Harriet Parker, my confidant and lawyer. Harriet. My wife, Donna. Linda and Laura are daughters. It was awkward, but it was the best I could manage. Before we could engage in meaningless conversation, the waiter appeared and took the order. I am not hungry. If you don't mind, I'll just have some coffee. Donna broke the silence first. I quickly looked around the table and reached the same conclusion. Why don't you simply bring us 5 cups of coffee and leave the pot on the table? The waiter nodded, and everyone seemed to let out a sigh of relief. It's nice to see you again, Bill. Could you tell us about what you've been doing in recent years? Donna smiled slightly as she said, I'm just working and giving you the freedom to discover yourself or whatever you're doing. Harry kicked me lightly beneath the table. I needed you, and you abandoned me. Perhaps you needed someone, but not me. Mom, Dad, drop it. I am sure you did not plan this meeting to sit around and tease each other. Dad, why are we here? Linda was extremely persistent. I saw that it would be a brief meeting. I was at a loss. I looked at Harry, hoping for a hint of how to proceed. She ignored me and took over the conversation. Harry reached into her purse and took out an envelope. She passed it across the table to Donna. "Dear Mrs. Smith, this is a divorce petition. I believe you will find this very fair. I recommend that you take it to your lawyer and ask him to review it." Laura and Linda looked astounded. It was obvious that they had not expected this. Donna, on the other hand, had a broad smile. She did not take Harry's envelope, but instead reached into her purse and pulled out the same one. "You are a dumb jerk. I divorced your weak ass 8 months ago because you deserted. You never received a copy because I didn't know where to send it. This is final. Anyway, you don't have anything I could claim." Her smile broadened into a wide grin. The waiter came back with our coffee and a full bowl for the table just as Donna stood up. She smiled at Harry and me, then gave the girls a strange look before leaving. She left the 2 envelopes on the table. "Dad, can we stay for lunch? I've heard they make a great custard pie here," Laura asked. Harry and I laughed and asked the waiter for the menu. Harry, Laura, and Linda had a wonderful lunch and chatted. It appeared to me that I was eating alone. I've never understood women particularly well. The girls exchanged phones and agreed to stay in touch. Back in the room, I started packing my belongings. "William, I thought we'd stay one more night." "Yes, but not here. Hurry and get ready." An hour and 30 minutes later, we arrived in Elkton, Maryland. 30 minutes later, Harriet Parker transformed into Harry Smith. We stayed the night in Laura, Virginia. Our house has a 3-car garage. That is another story. The girl stated that Donna had a seizure when she discovered that I had received more than $2 million from Gilbert Industries. Donna moved to Iowa. I'm not sure why. Here is the next story. Dear Jeff, by the time you read this letter, I will have left you. I know it's a little silly to send you a Dear John email, but I know there will be a horrible scene that I honestly don't want to witness. Call me a coward all you want, but I can't bear the pain I know I'm going to cause you. You see, I became bored. I'm tired of living the same way we have for the past 28 years. In addition, we have been dating for 4 years while in college. I'm tired of you reading my thoughts and finishing sentences. Even though it feels good to rub my neck or legs in such a unique way, I know you'll do what's necessary just by the way I sigh. Or when I flop into an armchair or bed, it begins to bother me. It feels as if I don't even have my own thoughts, which is frightening. I'm also tired of our boring bedtime routine. Oh, I'm sure you'd object the most to that statement. I know that 98% of the time, I declined your advances and avoided making love until I was ready on my own terms. I realize it all appears hypocritical and selfish. It appears selfish because that is how it is, and that is why I am leaving. I crave the thrill of the chase, the excitement of a new lover. You can never be like that again. You were so attractive when we were younger. I played guitar with a friend in a band. You rode your Harley in that beautiful leather jacket. The wind blew your blonde curls. I was delighted on the dance floor, whether at a rock and roll club or in a ballroom. There were always lovely paintings by you. He drew it alongside me and the children. However, as we grew older, we became complacent about how we treated one another. The rock band concerts have ended so that you can coach the football team. The Harley is parked in the garage, buried beneath children's sports equipment in front of the minivan, and my knees won't stay on the dance floor. But you still have lovely hair. But now that the kids are grown, I'm uncomfortable with the minivan lifestyle that you appear to have fallen in love with. I assure you that I did not cheat on you, and you are the only man. However, I did find men who piqued my interest, and before I started cheating on you, I thought it would be best to end our relationship. I couldn't bear the thought of disrespecting you in private. Jeff, I have always loved you too much for that. I'm certain our paths will cross again, but I never want to talk about this with you. I spoke with Sam and asked him to represent us in the divorce. He finished the paperwork, leaving you with everything but my clothes and personal belongings, which I took out today. I even left you half of my pension and took over half of our debt servicing, excluding the mortgage. It is only fair. I want to be at least fair. Please cry in private so that when we meet at children's events, we can continue to avoid confrontation. But justice remains justice. So if you want to respond by letter, I promise to read every word and appreciate your parting thoughts. I adore Ellen. I read it repeatedly, frozen in the kitchen where I had taken it. There were no tears yet. I was too stunned. There was no indication that this would happen. There was no sign of dissatisfaction or wanting more. There's no struggle. There is no hint of another man in her world. We came into contact. We kissed. We smiled. We did the little things that two people do to grow old together. In fact, I've spent the last year attempting to have an affair with her, hoping to reignite our passions now that our youngest has left for good. After graduating from college, I purchased jewelry, but she informed me that it was too expensive and that she preferred chocolate. I gave her control over making love because she claimed that forcing her to do so was putting her under stress. She said that holding hands with her is also beneficial. I think she gave me a hint. I just thought she was slowing down due to the changes in her life, and here I am, the last to learn about it. I drank beer and took a shower. Yes, after finishing my beer, I grabbed 2 more before returning to the shower. There was no one around to call me out for leaving a water trail on her floor. I drank, intending to finish my stock, which included wine from the cellar. I made a serious dent in my mind. I awoke the next morning with a burning headache on the floor of my basement, naked after taking a shower. I went upstairs, vomited everything I ate, climbed into bed, and cried. I was 11 years old when my grandmother died. During the wake and funeral, my grandfather took me aside and spoke with me for quite some time. He's taught me a lesson. When someone dies, you have 3 days to mourn. God resurrected the dead in 3 days, and you can resurrect your life. Cry, scream, kick things. When you get older, have a drink, get to a good bar, fight, pray, make as much of it as possible, then stop and return to your life. As you continue your journey, remember the departed. A person does not dwell on the past that he has lost. He lives in both the present, which he is creating, and the future, which he is moving toward. Grandfather was wise. I believed my wife's defection had ruined our marriage. I cried my eyes out. I drank myself silly. I punched holes in the drywall walls with my fists until they bled. Then they used whatever was available, such as furniture, to complete the task. I screamed, I kicked, I sipped it. I didn't eat much, but I came to the conclusion that beer is made up of grain, yeast, and water. Like bread, correct? And wine is a fruit. It was my bottled food. It was summertime. She waited until the end of the school year before leaving. Good planning. I awoke the Tuesday after Friday when she dropped her bomb and came out of mourning. I called my children first. Ellen informed them of her decision, and they tried desperately to contact me. I was too drunk to answer the phone, but I assured them everything was fine. I cleaned the house before calling my favorite charity to arrange for a donation truck to arrive. There was no way I was going to cling to the wreckage of a failed marriage. I kept the furniture that belonged to the family. I packed photographs and albums. My kids could have them if they wanted. I treated all of the other memorabilia the same way, but I discarded the ridiculous trinkets she had accumulated. But I've never liked them. What the hell do I care about Spanish ceramics or the copper cats we purchased in Portugal? Over the next few days, I went to Home Depot and purchased floors and carpets, paint, and, yes, new drywall. Now I intend to make this house my home. The pink and coral walls, as well as the frilly curtains, were history. I stopped at Sam's to sign the paperwork. He stated that because it was undeniable and only one lawyer was involved, our divorce would be finalized closer to the return of school. I sold my minivan and drove to a small dealer in a back alley in the city center. I arrived home in a 1976 Triumph Spitfire convertible with British racing green beige leather upholstery and chrome alloy wheels, which I had always wanted. I unpacked the Harley, which was simple after clearing out the garage of all the old and used items. But the best decision I made was to call Buddy. That phone call changed my life as quickly as my wife's letter did, only a few days ago. Buddy and the guys arrived at my house about a half hour after I told him what happened. Buddy has been my best friend since 3rd grade. We formed a band and played ball together. When did the same classes meet? Twice during weddings. He was my best man. I was best man at his wedding. In his eyes, my marriage's dissolution was a disaster, and he couldn't leave me to deal with it alone. Our band stopped playing many years ago due to life circumstances, but the people we met did not forget us. When I say Buddy and the guys, I mean there were a lot of guys. We've played at numerous weddings, parties, and picnics. We frequently performed on the cheap or for free because we enjoyed the female fans who followed us from concert to concert. Goodwill breeds goodwill, and when everyone learned that I had trashed my house with the intention of converting it into my home, the gates of goodwill opened wide. Over the next 2 weeks, painters, carpenters, bricklayers, plumbers, and every other type of tradesman you can think of repaired far more than just my walls. You wouldn't recognize my house for a month. It has been completely redone, both inside and out. The funny thing about a group of guys is that they are often accompanied by a group of girls. Their wives and girls became interested in the Jeff's House project and began bringing their single girlfriends to the Jeff's Love Life project. Nobody was aggressive in their matchmaking attempts. It was too early for that, but it was clear that the seeds had been planted, and I was soon dancing and having fun. 2, 3 evenings per week. There were impromptu barbecues and parties at my house, and I was never alone. Although I didn't want to start a relationship before my divorce was finalized, however, he proposed recreating the band. Before the fresh paint dried on my house, he had already gone out and performed at a few clubs owned by old friends. Buddy and Jeff made their debut at Jimmy's and took over on Friday nights. He met us on Saturdays at a small dance club in the city and on Sunday evenings at a popular seafood restaurant by the water. We sounded like we hadn't stopped playing. We were all in the same situation in our lives. Our children had either moved away or no longer needed us. We all looked good, and everyone except Ronnie, our drummer, wore our own hair. We got along very well. Our fans were delighted to hear us again after a long hibernation. My sons paid me frequent visits, assisted with repairs, and occasionally went out with the group. I strictly instructed them not to tell their mother anything about me, and if she inquired, to tell the truth. Dad was upset, but he moved on, and everything was fine. My daughter, who lived in Australia with her fiancé, had similar training. My children have always been kind to me, and I believe they respect my wishes. When they told me that Ellen had not received any information from them regarding my well-being, I knew they were telling the truth. I also spent time fighting loneliness by developing healthy habits, improving my diet, and increasing my physical activity. I had never allowed myself to get out of shape, but now I was swimming vigorously in the pool and remembering to run and cycle every night, even before the concert. I practiced. I redid my house, my social status, and my class schedule. Within a month of Ellen's departure, I had a physical relationship with my children. I believe it is time to respond to her letter. After all, she asked for it, correct? Dear Ellen, thank you. You were correct. Goodbye, Jeff. I've sent her an email, short and sweet. That says it all. I didn't have her new address, and I didn't particularly need it. Someone tried to tell me that she slept with a handsome guy my daughter's age who drove a fancy car and was a great companion. They were spotted together on the beach, in clubs, and at the beach. Whenever I was told about her, I politely declined to hear it, but we had a lot of friends, and these little pieces quickly came together to paint a picture of a hot September-June romance. Perhaps in October or June, November, May. It did not matter to me. I truly wish her well. Grandpa's 3-day rule kept me moving forward, and I liked myself right now. Too many memories to dwell on. The end of summer is a sad reality for teachers, but August is a hot month for musicians. This year was no different. Buddy and I signed up for festival after festival from now until September. Due to our hectic schedule, we played 2 to 3 times per day on Labor Day. I was unable to read her email response. I did not ignore her. I assumed we were just exchanging one letter and moving on. After all, she wanted this, right? I was just too busy having fun to check my email. In fact, I almost forgot about my marital problems when Sam called to tell me that our business was moving quickly. It appears that a clerk for a family court judge was a fan of a particular group. I was supposed to officially become a bachelor on Friday. After 1.5 months of life's metamorphosis, on Friday, I'll be a bachelor again. We were playing at a citywide art festival/street fair when all these beautiful women with short skirts and plunging cleavages became fair game. Cool. When we took the stage, a crowd gathered outside. We turned up the amps to concert levels and unleashed our hard-driving blues style. We covered songs, sang originals, and improvised jams on the spot, and everyone had a great time. It was very pleasant. The guys dug through the vaults and discovered our master tapes from the past. We never recorded a record before having children, but now we have enough material for a couple of improvised albums. CDs are much easier to release than vinyl, so we combined old and new tracks, and there was a brisk trade at the sales table. I did not see Ellen in the crowd. I missed her attempt to go backstage because I was hanging the guitar on the back bar, which I had mounted on my bike many years ago, specifically for transporting the guitar. I didn't notice her running towards me until Michelle, a 30-year-old blonde, swung her leg to sit behind me. I didn't notice how her face fell when she realized another woman was sitting in her place. For the first time in my 25-year-old Harley's life, I drove away from her. I did not notice her tears. It's unfortunate that I didn't see it. Michelle was amazing. At the end of the evening, she told me that she would never forget the time we spent together, but that I should not call her again. She was probably wondering how long it would take her to heal and walk normally. I didn't believe I could avoid Ellen indefinitely, so I didn't do it. The next time I saw Ellen, she was at our usual Friday night concert at Jimmy's. She walked through the door with her toy boy and a young couple. They located a table and ordered a beer. As soon as I saw her, I signaled to the guys that we were going beyond our prepared set list. The band always enjoys playing American Girl. When we saw an ex-girlfriend in the hall, the offended guy always grabbed the microphone as soon as the girl was noticed. It was our way of coming together in support of our friend. We firmly believed that a girl who had broken up with one of us was unsuitable for any of us, and none of us ever crossed the line. To date, ex-girlfriends. I began playing in a slower style that was popularized by Lenny Kravitz. I've never enjoyed this melody more than when I sang it with my whole heart. I was capable of. The guitar solos were memorable and really got the crowd going. I didn't notice Ellen's expression change when she realized we were playing this old song for her, but Buddy's wife did. Later, she told me that tears welled up in her eyes as I sang the lyrics. "Stay away from me, and please leave me alone," she cried. "Ed, do not knock on my door. I do not want to see your face anymore." She left before the end of the song, barely able to contain herself. The toy boy's friends and girlfriends did not accompany her, but stayed for several hours to drink and dance. There must have been some sort of trouble in paradise. A week later, my eldest son paid me a visit. Ellen and her young lover reportedly had a fight that night. He was clearly tired of her charm, and she was tired of keeping up with the activity level of a 20-year-old man. He was upset because she had limited his freedom by avoiding the places where we played. The band was rumored to be active again, and wherever we played, it was a trendy and crowded place. He was also very upset that she had given up her property rights in the divorce. Obviously, he intended to move into my house. I suspected he was a gold digger, but what a jerk. I believe he was unaware of our prenuptial agreement, which states that if one of us leaves the family for greener pastures, he will be ruined. The other keeps the house money, furniture, accumulated finances, and other valuables acquired during their time together. Regardless of how short or long their lives were, it was her father's idea. He didn't trust any man's intentions toward his little girl, and I had no intention of hurting her, so I would have signed anything. Ellen obviously remembered this, which is probably why she offered me everything, and it was so easy for her to accept the divorce agreement, even though she was losing everything. The toy boy sent her packing, and she spent the last night crying over the phone with the kids. I felt terrible for her, but remember that I had spent 3 days in mourning for my marriage and was now free of concerns about her. The kids were upset with my attitude. Of course, they assumed I was still single and suggested I bring their mother back to the family home, if only to help her get back on her feet. I didn't agree. Accepting her meant taking responsibility for the mood swings she would undoubtedly experience at their peak. Dealing with the normal menopausal experience she shared with me prior to the divorce was difficult enough, let alone her feeling rejected by a toy boy. The humiliation of crawling to me on her lap, combined with the possibility of guilt for abandoning me in the first place, were not things I wanted to include on my daily menu. I began eating better, living a simpler, uncluttered life in a clean, uncluttered home, and enjoying the golden years of my career as a highly respected educator. Partying with my band and performing duet concerts with a buddy, and my personal life was busier than ever. Many women simply wanted to be with a popular single musician. I couldn't imagine bringing another woman home solely to introduce her to my ex-wife. I'm sitting in the living room watching TV and eating ice cream with sweets. No, I never liked being single when I was younger, and I have no plans to change that now. The days turned into weeks. When Ellen finally rented a small apartment, the kids softened their attitude and invited her in to help her out, and I agreed by allowing them to raid the storage room I rented for furniture and other items that were too good to throw away. I even lent them a truck that the band had purchased to transport equipment from concert to concert. With the new school year underway and the group's active schedule, I'm rarely silent. She taught in the same area, but at a different school, so our paths crossed from time to time, but I didn't pay her much attention. I was a hot topic in the gossip mill. Perhaps this was due to the frequent appearance of a Harley or my preferred sports car. Perhaps my increased activity level carried over to school life. Perhaps it was due to my new status as a single man. The rumors didn't bother me. The band was extremely popular. My barbecue parties were well known for being enjoyable, and I was never short of female companions. I was having a great time and didn't miss my family at all. I flew to France to celebrate Thanksgiving. It had long been a dream of mine to visit France on the day that Beaujolais went on sale. After packing my bags, I was surprised when my son called the night before I left to invite me to dinner at Ellen's on Turkey Day. He was furious when he discovered that I had other plans, and he immediately nailed me on having a family Christmas that he and his girlfriend would cook, with me only providing a venue. He informed me that all 3 of my children were coming to town, and they wanted to spend a special day remembering their childhood. I agreed on the condition that Ellen understand she shouldn't come on a date, and that I would repay her in kind by devoting my company to the children. I was genuinely surprised when he told me that his mother wasn't dating at all and was actually quite lonely. I wasn't interested in seeing some guy grinning like a cat full of cream at a family gathering like this, so I didn't inquire about my ex-wife's personal life. They could stay at my house for as long as they wanted. In fact, I wanted all of the children to stay at home with me instead of going to the hotel. Dad. Mom will feel terrible because we are all at home, and she will have to leave when everything is over. I pondered his words. This will be my family's first reunion since the kids moved in, and we will all be together. Ellen also belonged here, so welcome her to stay. However, she will have to accept that she is the only one who does not sleep in her old room. Welcome to the guest room. If you bring guests, they will have to sleep with you or stay at the hotel. Thank you, Dad. It will mean a lot to each of us. He was correct. Christmas that year was on a Saturday, and everyone arrived on Thursday evening. My daughter and her fiancé arrived from Australia, and my son and his girlfriend met them at the airport on their way from Boston. My youngest has been with them since he attended college in Boston. Ellen arrived about 10 minutes before them, and I watched her sit in her car until the kids arrived. She must have felt nervous. It was touching to see how everyone gathered in the front yard to hug and kiss, and for the first time since I emerged from my 3-day mourning period, I felt a little sick as a result of the water that passed under our collective bridge. They walked through the front door to find a very pleasant homecoming. Of course, neither my daughter nor my ex-wife had been in the house since I rebuilt it, so that was somewhat surprising. But I hung my Christmas decorations in almost the same way. We've been decorating hallways for years. Candles, nutcrackers, and garlands were in place, but on my new furniture, the Christmas tree with all of the old decorations that we bought at Christmas fairs and handcrafted in art class stood in its venerable central position. When I renovated the living room, I installed a fireplace, and the warm fire burned with the spirit of pine. The aroma of wood, fire, and heated cider filled the room. Plates of cookies and fudge stood in every corner, and the table was covered in fine china that Grandma Ireland had given us as a wedding gift many years ago. There was no doubt that I had transformed our house into my own, but there was also no doubt that my home was more than ready to host my family's Christmas celebration, my family. After everything that had happened, it appeared strange, but they were actually my family. Despite their adulthood, the children remained my flesh and blood. Even though I was divorced, my ex-wife held the key to my heart for the majority of my adult life when they looked around. There was a great deal of fuss and excitement. I restored the children's bedrooms to nearly the same style in which they grew up, with the exception of changing the bright pink in my daughter's room to a more mature, soft pastel shade. I also replaced their old single beds with comfortable double beds, matching the new headboards to the children's table and chest of drawers. The spacious guest room has been converted into a studio, complete with a drawing table near the window. Musicians require instruments, amplifiers, and recording equipment. I opened up one side of the ground floor, transforming a small library into a spacious room with a TV and a billiard table. The living room was outfitted with a large new fireplace, above which hung brand new Christmas stockings for everyone, including Ellen. When the children noticed the stockings, they stopped and looked at each other with a devilish gleam in their eyes. They broke the silence and rushed to get stockings. When they did, I saw the years melt away in their bodies, and they were like little kids again, diving headfirst into the joy of Christmas. Maturity regained its dignity when the two older ones took and returned their partner's stockings, each telling a separate story about childhood memories that brought the stockings back. It was our responsibility to lovingly decorate small, inexpensive gifts and treats to fill stockings before moving on to the more basic gifts under the tree. They were soon all eating cookies and chocolate and trying on ridiculous new socks that could only be worn on Christmas. "But Dad, your stocking is empty. We had no idea, so we didn't take anything with us." I pulled a stocking from the mantelpiece and looked inside. "Now you've filled it up. You're all here remembering, laughing, and playing. Now you're infusing it with the essence of Christmas. You fill it with love." There were a few heartfelt hugs and kisses as we all wished each other a happy Christmas. Ellen stayed in our arms for a little longer than we expected from an ex-wife, but not in an awkward way, and for a while, it appeared that we were still one big happy family. The children realized there were probably presents under the tree, and the dizziness from their Christmas vacation came flooding back in an instant. We exchanged gifts. The feast was delicious, and after the dishes were cleared away, the guitars appeared and we enjoyed our traditional Christmas pastime. It was already late, so we began to go to our bedrooms. Ellen went to the hallway closet to get her coat. "Thank you for being so kind to me today. I sincerely appreciate spending Christmas with you and the children. I realize I have to blame myself, but of all the things I've given up, I miss family the most." Well, the children are now adults who live independently. It would be equally rare if we were still together. I understand, but I also miss the family time you and I shared. You know, the time for a two-person family. I guess I'm finally telling you that I'm sorry. I seriously ruined a good life for both of us. Don't beat yourself up. We always told the children to follow their dreams and be happy. This is exactly what you did. We still live a good life. It's simply different now. She stared at me incredulously. "Are you saying you have very few regrets about what we had? Are you not feeling nostalgic after today? Ellen, don't you regret what we've lost? We had a wonderful day. What did we lose? We misplaced each other. I have lost you, and I will never forgive myself for it. Don't you care?" She was crying hard now. I hugged her, and she completely broke down. I cried when she left, but I was saddened that it had happened to her. Now, on Christmas Day, after she had calmed down, I reminded her that when we were dating in college, she broke up with me. She was concerned that we were becoming too serious too quickly, and she wanted to consider whether she truly wanted to spend the rest of her life with just one man. I told her how much it hurt me that she had left me, but that I would never want to be with someone who did not feel completely committed to me. I told her that I had given my marriage one of the 3-day mourning periods and was now ready to move on with my life. I thanked her for being such a wonderful part of my life today. I was calm, which kept her from crying. I invited her to spend the night, set up a bed in the studio, and gave her my t-shirt and bathrobe so she could explore the house. I heard her sobbing when I returned upstairs after locking the house, and I didn't think she'd sleep well. Nevertheless, I slept like a log. The following day was a continuation of Christmas, and Ellen was overjoyed when we all asked her to stay the entire weekend. We didn't discuss our past while the kids were present, but I recognized the looks. Ellen gave me when we got married. I saw smiles like, "I love you so much and you're wonderful." I even replied to a couple of hugs and, "Can I kiss you?" looks. We read each other's minds at the table, just like we used to when we were married. She poured herself coffee and I added the appropriate amount of milk. I was buttering my pancakes and noticed that she had used just the right amount of maple syrup. We finished each sentence one after the other. However, we slept in separate rooms. The children all left together. My daughter planned to spend time with the boys in Boston before going skiing in Vermont. As a result, Ellen and I were left alone in the home we purchased together. I started a fire. She opened a bottle of wine. We sat and spoke. We reflected. I joked and then became serious. I was so stupid, wrong, and cruel. I know I'll never be able to make things up to you, and I do not expect you to forgive me. But I'd like to apologize. I'd like to at least be friends again. You were not just my husband. You were my best friend, advisor, most trusted colleague, and accomplice, and I miss everything so much. I looked at her, smiled, and the dam broke. Ellen can speak, and she has created a masterpiece of talking to one person. She told me about how she became bored, but she now realizes that she isolated herself from me in order to create a vacuum of passion that we shared. She told me about the thrill of meeting a handsome young man and the allure of a secret love affair. She told me how easy it was to turn me into a monster when she was acting like one herself. Her story was about betrayal, followed by rage that I didn't fight for her, that I was indifferent and simply let her go. She expressed her jealousy over my life. When I landed on my feet and resumed the lifestyle I enjoyed when we met, especially when she saw some of Michelle's younger photos. I will never forget our first date after the divorce. Girl rides in the back, the seat on my Harley. Ellen's jealousy turned to rage when she saw me with girl after girl offering something better than what she was giving me. Her emotions plummeted after the divorce was finalized, and she discovered that her boyfriend only dated married women until they became single and then dumped them. He appeared to enjoy spending their husband's money since his father, an old-school conservative who strongly disagreed with his son's destructive methods, disowned him and withdrew his trust fund. She didn't find a new perspective after the breakup. It appears that good men her age were either too busy or refused to take her seriously after she cheated on her devoted first husband. There were plenty of men who would buy her a drink, dance with her, or get into bed with her, but none of them wanted a serious relationship. The young guys were excited to date her. After all, she looked hot and sensual when she wanted to turn that switch. However, they did not want to be involved in a long-term relationship with someone going through menopause. It is difficult to start a family in such circumstances. I listened to her chatter until she became exhausted. I poured a glass of wine for each of us and handed it to her, smiling. Yes, based on what you said, you were fairly stupid. But you don't have to make things up to me. As I previously stated, you were following your dreams and I loved you enough to allow it. I wish I had a photograph of her face at that time. She clearly did not expect me to associate my reaction with my love for her. I forgave you almost immediately. How could I keep you married if you wanted to leave? I couldn't keep you tied up or locked in a cage inside the house. If I forbid you from doing something, you would simply hide it from me and move on. Your note may have appeared cruel at first, but in retrospect, I see that she kept everything clean and tidy. We did not fight over property. We did not have to worry about custody as the children grew older. I need to thank you for that. So I'm no longer your husband, and it may be a long time before you consider me your best friend or advisor. Trust is definitely an issue for me. However, if you want to trust my advice, you can choose your own label. Partners in crime might be a little close for where we are right now, but how about we just call ourselves friends? Her eyes welled with tears as she melted into my arms. She spent one more night. No, I do not think we slept separately. We had a lot of catching up to do. It appeared that we were comfortable sharing the role of parents again. The next day, she went home to prepare for a New Year's hike with the kids in Boston. I have had concerts all week. Musicians are making a lot of money right now. Of course, the side benefit was that my focus was on the music, and I didn't think about Ellen. The school semester began shortly after the new year, and my new schedule left little time for me to meet Ellen. The next time we met was at a conference in April. We sat next to each other and ate lunch together at a table for two. We had a nice conversation about my daughter's upcoming marriage in Australia. It appeared that we had resumed our friendship. Toward the end of lunch, she thanked me for being so nice to her today and on Christmas. She expressed her delight that we could move on as friends and asked me to do her a favor. She blushed, then grunted and stumbled before mumbling a request to take her for a ride on the Harley one weekend. Of course, I responded without losing my rhythm. Sunday should be warm and beautiful, but we don't play today. Let's head north, stop for a great lunch, and spend some time outside. She was smiling and upbeat. I was drawn to the memories of her riding a motorcycle with me when we were younger. The day always ended with an exhilarating romp in the bedroom, inspired by hours of her arms hugging me from behind. And well, you get the picture without any additional information. She was always teasing me about the next time we went for a ride with something big and powerful between her legs, and the bike was also good. I wasn't sure if I could resist her. I was correct. I could not. We drove up to the waterfall, and I could feel her hands wandering. We climbed to the top of the waterfall and took a long path through the forest back down the hill to the motorcycle. We stopped in a small town and strolled through the streets, browsing antique shops. It was a day that I despised, except for the fact that I was spending time with the woman I had spent my entire life with. I see her as beautiful in every way. The dinner was excellent. Then we drove back south, stopping at a marina tavern for a seafood dinner, candlelight. Delicious food. Waves are gently lapping against the pier. Boats pass gracefully. There was no doubt that the dinner was excellent. I took her to my home. Come to our house. I put her in bed. To our beds. To my bed. Yes, we made love this time. It appeared that we were now playing lovers together. We met again the following week for dinner and at the movies. And yes, we did make love again. We even ate lunch together a few times. We never discussed what our relationship was leading up to, or about the word exceptional in any of its forms. We're not thinking clearly. Our daughter's wedding was right around the corner. We went over the details in depth, and I proudly wrote out all of the checks without complaint. Hey, the band made some money by playing all of those profitable festivals. We paid off our mortgage while still married, had almost no credit card debt, and I worked full-time at the top of the pay scale with no dependents to support. I wasn't wealthy, but I was comfortable and had money in the bank. The information we did not share concerned our travel plans. Our daughter's wedding was right around the corner. We went over the details in depth, and I proudly wrote out all of the checks without complaint. Hey, the band made some money by playing all of those profitable festivals. We paid off our mortgage while still married, had almost no credit card debt, and I worked full-time at the top of the pay scale with no dependents to support. I wasn't wealthy, but I was comfortable and had money in the bank. We didn't share information about our travel plans. We all agreed on this separately. Although we both planned to stay in a hotel where all of the guests would be together, when we compared our records, we discovered that we were on the same plane. I invited her to meet me at my house and share the car I had hired to take me to the airport on the day of the trip, and Ellen arrived early. I had just rinsed the coffee pot and started the dishwasher with breakfast dishes when the car pulled into the driveway. Our driver drove us to JFK Airport. After our bags were checked, we headed to the terminal. On the day of the trip, Ellen arrived early. I had just rinsed the coffee pot and started the dishwasher with breakfast dishes when the car pulled into the driveway. Our driver drove us to JFK Airport. Our bags were checked, and we proceeded to the terminal together. There aren't many direct flights from JFK Airport to Sydney per day right now, so the check-in desk wasn't crowded, and we all joined the checking queue together. I followed Ellen up, and the man behind the counter asked why I hadn't joined the short line for first-class passengers. I bought first-class tea. I purchased a first-class ticket because the flight was so long, even though I usually flew as cheaply as possible. I had no idea that the benefits began with express check-in, which made the ticket agent laugh. He directed me to the first-class waiting room. Ellen was waiting for me, and together we passed through security and went to the waiting room. I checked in at the front desk, and the attendant did not inquire about the ticket, instead offering a standard phrase. There's a seat in first class, and I noticed her next to you. Do you want to upgrade? You are wrong. I know it appears that way, but there's something about flying halfway around the world with my daughter's mother to attend her wedding in first class. Chairs that folded into beds while she was crammed into the cabin with no legroom seemed inappropriate. When we boarded the plane, I made her wait beside me. She was annoyed and worried about losing her place if she stayed away. I started to worry. I explained that I had already registered it previously. Of course, the irritation subsided completely, but when she sat next to me in first grade and I explained why, as the mother of the bride, her mood changed. Do not be silly, dear reader. Now, you should know that public displays of affection are not my thing, especially in a cramped airplane toilet. We arrived in Sydney and had a magical week. We traveled, we went to famous places, and the best thing we did was help my daughter start her own marriage. I can't tell you how proud I felt to say my one phrase. Her mother arrived in Sydney, and the entire week was magical. We traveled, we went to famous places, and the best thing we did was help my daughter start her own marriage. I can't tell you how proud I was to say my one phrase after walking her down the aisle as her mother and I gave her away. I joined Ellen at the reception and enjoyed the appropriate dancing. Of course, the evening's highlight was when her brothers and I joined the band to perform a rousing rendition of All American Girl as a musical tribute to our little girl. Following the reception, Ellen, the boys, and I gathered in the hotel lobby. One of them got right to the point. "So, what is the matter with you both?" "Nothing new, honey," Ellen responded. "Your father and I are just your parents. We have moved on from our past and are now enjoying life. Does it suit you?" "Yes, Mom. It just seems like something more. It appears that you have come close again." "I do not know. We got back together, honey. I am not stupid. I went a little crazy once and made a stupid mistake, okay? Then I was. Honey, I am not stupid. I went a little crazy once and made a stupid mistake, okay? Then I was stupid. Very stupid. I am responsible for this and accept the consequences. Dad and I spoke about it, and what he told me is correct. As we have always taught you, I made a choice. I ended the relationship. I accept the consequences. The boys looked at me, waiting for me to proceed. I had nothing to add, so I sat there smiling, sipping a delicious local Australian ale. "Come on, Dad," Mom answered the question. "Will we hear from you boys? You should be relieved that we did not spend a week here making snide, offensive comments about each other. I've heard that this is how divorced couples behave at events like this. Also, I believe what you are asking for is generally within the scope of my personal life, but it extends beyond that. But Dad, you adore Mom. We all see it, and we're both old enough to understand what it means when a girl tells you she only wants to be friends. So without creating nightmares and negative images of your personal life, simply tell us you and your mother are friends. More than just friends, son, with our history. If we're friends, it'll always be more than just that." We talked a little more before heading up to our rooms. I had just put on my pajamas when there was a knock on the door. It was Ellen. I let her inside. We went to bed. She thanked me for the upgrade even before my breathing had returned to normal. She began by thanking me for a wonderful week, followed by a thank you for making my daughter's wedding something we approached as a couple. I was completely exhausted and grateful when she thanked me for what I had said to the boys in the living room. She stayed for breakfast, which I ordered in my room. The trip home was wonderful. We arrived at my house, and before leaving, she kissed me hard. "I want you to know I am here for you. Do whatever you want, whenever you want." At some point, I forgot why I loved you. I had forgotten how much I loved you somewhere along the way in my adulthood. Leaving you was the biggest mistake I ever made. I threw away the most valuable thing I'd ever owned. Hurting you will always be my deepest regret in life, and I wish I could simply turn back the clock. Anyway, feel free to contact me whenever you want. Do you want to play tennis with a friend? Call me. Need a fan? Support the singer? I'm your girlfriend. I need a lover. I am your woman. I need to make a meal. I'll cook it. I'll clean. Fold your laundry. Clean the dishes and windows. I will never ask or expect exclusivity. I know I turned it down, but if you ever inquire, the answer is yes. Friend, girlfriend, lover, wife. Simply ask, thank you for being so. So, you've been absolutely wonderful. And if you do decide to live with someone else, you can count on me to let her know what she has, and that she had better make you happy or I'll wait. That is very kind of you, Ellen. I was overjoyed that we could get close again. I'm just not sure I feel comfortable labeling us. I'm not sure where we are going. I'm just glad we're going there together, at least some of the time. I've always lived with women and usually follow their orders. First, my mother and sister. Right after college, I married you. I enjoy living in a house where I can choose the colors and level of clutter. I like to cook my own meals. I like it my way, and my fridge is stocked with my favorite dishes. I enjoy playing in bands, and I must admit that having an open bed life was nice. I do not intend to change that anytime soon. Do you remember what I wrote in response to your letter? Yes, you wrote that I was correct. They thanked me and said goodbye. You didn't even sign it love. I intended every word in this note. You were correct. We were tired and in need of a change. The words of thanks and goodbye were sincere. Anything involving love would be inappropriate and superficial. Anything else I could say would be either rude or make me appear like a begging, whining weakling. I'm not good at any of this. So I wrote what needed to be written, then stopped. What should I write now, Tom? Nothing. I have shown you everything you need to know. Yes, it is. You showed me that you care. You showed me that you still think I'm attractive. You have shown me that you want me. You will stand by my side when it comes to children. You have demonstrated that you love me more than a casual lover, even enough to have dinner and breakfast with me. You enjoy my company enough to date me. You respect me and our history, enough to send me to first grade, pay for our daughter's wedding without asking me for a dime, and tell our sons that I am the love of your life. The only thing that appears to be missing is a more fulfilling role as your wife. I want you to know that I understand and will never press you on this issue. I know it was my fault that I misplaced it. However, understand that if you decide to ask, the answer will be yes. And I'll pray every day of my life for the chance to say it. She kissed me well. Of course, I thought about what she had said. But come on, really, why stop with just one woman? I held the entire world in my hands. I have my own house and children, grown up, financial comfort, an ex-wife who, by her own admission, was willing to do anything to get me back. I have a toned body with all my hair, a hot band, a Harley, and an endless supply of women who wanted to hop on the back of my motorcycle and ride to a party. Of course, I loved Ellen enough to spend my golden years with her. Maybe I'll change my mind when we reach 60, but not now. I didn't write Dear Jeff, so I didn't feel responsible for the outcome. I forgive her. I made peace with her. I got my life in order. So I picked up the phone and called the blonde who had gotten on the Harley after the street festival. When I asked her if she was serious about never answering the phone again, she giggled into it. She assured me that she was fine and could walk again, and she invited me to come immediately. Even as I started the Harley to go to her, I knew that one day I would ask Ellen to marry me again. But that wasn't the day. Here is the next story. Anyone can be influenced by bad people. The most important thing is to figure out who is bad and who isn't. Many people abuse their high official positions to manipulate the feelings of others, and in my opinion, these are the worst people because they destroy other people's lives. Hello, my name is Barry Scott. I'm 32 years old, 6 feet tall, and weigh 200 pounds. I'm married to Linda, a stunning 32-year-old redhead, and we have been happily married for 4 years. We met at a party hosted by her best friend Claire to commemorate Claire's engagement to my best friend Larry. When I saw Linda across the room, I felt an immediate connection. I asked her to dance, and we ended up spending the entire evening together. At the end of the party, I asked her out on a date, and she accepted. After 6 months of dating, we married, with Larry as my best man. Claire is Linda's matron of honor. Everything looked perfect. At the time, I was leaving the Army after serving 2 tours as a ranger with the SOG, unsure of my next steps. I listened when Colonel Scott approached me with an offer to join a Langley-based Special Operations Unit. I expressed interest, and we moved forward from there. I received both a Purple Heart and a Silver Cross for being in the wrong place at the wrong time, but it wasn't heroic. Only a strong will to survive. In my role, I served as the point person, handling the difficult tasks while the rest of the team assisted. They identified targets, arranged transportation, forged documents, and handled withdrawals. My job was to eliminate targets with the provided equipment, which included instructions on whether to make a statement or make it appear accidental. My civilian cover was a government security consultant earning a 6-figure salary. On missions, I received an additional $250K in danger money, which was deposited into a Swiss-numbered account. I kept the account information in a secure box at a 200-mile-away independent bank. In between assignments, I started day trading and saved a lot of money for when we have children. As I previously stated, we were content. And money was not an issue because Linda worked as a PA to the sales team manager, Albert Weiss, at an advertising agency. Albert was a pleasant older gentleman who was looking forward to retiring with his wife of 30 years. Linda frequently worked late and occasionally accompanied Albert to sales meetings throughout the country. I didn't mind because I'd occasionally be away for up to 2 weeks on consulting assignments. Problems began, but I was unaware of them at the time. Albert retired and was replaced by Clive West, the new head of sales, in September. Over the next 3 months, Linda frequently discussed how Clive was doing this or that, how much she was learning from him, and how he wanted her on the sales team. When I joked that Clive might be able to walk on water, Linda stopped mentioning him entirely. At this point, I wasn't concerned because I knew Linda would never betray me. However, I was looking forward to the company's Christmas party, where I could finally meet this impressive Clive. The party was scheduled for the week before Christmas, and Linda was excited to attend and show off her new outfit. Linda appeared as I was waiting at the bottom of the stairs in my tuxedo. I took a sharp breath. She looked stunning. She wore an emerald green dress, red 4-inch heels, and the ruby necklace, earrings, and bracelet I gave her for our anniversary. "You've gone all out this year to impress someone special." She looked away, slightly guilty, and replied, "I want to look my best for my handsome man." I smiled and asked, "Who could that be, you silly?" "Who else? Okay, let's go." We arrived at the venue 10 minutes early and were shown to our table. I noticed we had a table all to ourselves and asked Linda about it. Typically, we shared a table with some of her co-workers with whom I chatted while she socialized. The dinner was satisfactory, but not outstanding. Linda walked away from the table as we were finishing the last of the wine. I saw her walk across the room to a tall, handsome man dressed in an Armani suit who appeared to be about 5 years older than us. She touched his arm to direct his attention to me, and they both came over to our table. "Barry, this is Clive, my boss." "Clive, this is my husband, Barry." I stood up to shake his hand. He tried a firm grip, but when I matched his strength, he quickly removed his hand. "Barry, you've got quite the grip. Same for you, Clive. How are you finding things at Benson so far? I am getting the hang of it, with the assistance of your beloved wife. I'm looking forward to working more closely with Linda in the future." He said this with a smirk, making his intentions clear. I looked at Linda, who avoided eye contact. "It's time to set him straight." "Linda? What?" I said Linda. "That is her name, not Lynn." Lynn did not return my call for 2 days. Please include her full name, Linda. Oh, of course. Sorry. No offenses intended. None were taken. If there was, you'd be aware of it. Linda, visibly embarrassed, turned Clive around and said, "It's time to mingle and introduce you to those you don't know yet." She gave me a furious look before walking away. Linda and Albert would go around wishing everyone a Merry Christmas, which I had grown accustomed to. It usually took about an hour, and during that time I would converse with her colleagues at the table. However, whenever I looked for a familiar face, they would either look away or down at their table, which was concerning. I sat alone watching Linda and Albert make their rounds. He moved closer to her with each stop, placing his hand across her back and resting it on her hip. I was frustrated, especially because she didn't say anything to him about it. To the casual observer, they appeared to be a couple on a date. I captured several minutes of this behavior and had to decide what to do. I had been left alone for more than 2 hours and had the option of making a scene or going home. I decided to leave. I wrote a note to Linda, got my coat, and left. The note simply stated, "You do not need me here." So I went home. Take a taxi. There were no endearments, kisses, or "I love you" at the end. When I arrived home 20 minutes later, Linda had yet to respond. I turned off my phone, went to bed, and fell asleep almost immediately. I was startled awake when Linda opened the bedroom door and turned on the light. I glanced at the clock and realized I'd been home for 2 hours. It appears that she did not miss me until much later. What was that about? "You embarrassed me in front of my boss and then simply left me to find my way home. What is wrong with you? Not tonight. We will talk in the morning." Oh no, we're talking now. I grabbed my phone, pulled up the clips of her and Clive, and said, "You left me alone for over 2 hours while you and Clive acted like lovers." Nobody would look at me because they were so embarrassed. If you don't believe me, watch this. I began playing the clips, and she sat down with a frown. While she was preoccupied, I went to the guest room and locked the door. She knocked shortly after, and when I did not answer, called out, "Barry, I sincerely apologize. I see why you are upset. I did not mean to hurt you. There is nothing going on between me and Clive, I swear. Please open the door. See you at breakfast. Good night." The next morning, I got up, went through my routine, and showered. As I walked downstairs, I smelled cooking and realized she had prepared one of my favorites: waffles containing bacon and eggs. When I walked into the kitchen, there was coffee on the table, and she had just finished preparing breakfast. I thanked her and dug in. She waited for me to finish before she began speaking. "I'm very sorry for watching those clips. We did look like a couple, and I had no idea how others would perceive it. I apologize for embarrassing you, but I swear there is nothing going on between us. Please, believe me." "I believe you, Linda, but you should keep your distance from him. He practically told me he wants to seduce you. He is a predator, and you are the prey. He does not care. Who knows? How does he get away with calling you Lynn? When I got in trouble for doing the same, he was my boss. So he can call me whatever he wants. I dislike it, but there is nothing I can do. And as for him attempting to seduce me, you are mistaken. Linda, he's been an absolute gentleman. He is playing you like a cheap violin. You didn't even flinch as he placed his hand on your hip. Let me explain how this occurred. When he first started, he would summon you to his office to collect paperwork and discuss projects. Then he started bringing the papers to you and leaning over you, making you accustomed to his presence and invading your personal space. He'd briefly place his hand on your shoulder, gradually accustoming you to his touch. These touches grew in duration over time until he would rest his hand on your shoulder while conversing with you at your desk. By the time he put his hand on your hip, everything seemed normal. Am I correct? Linda looked at me with tears in her eyes and nodded in agreement. I sat quietly watching my wife for a few moments. You should be aware that certain individuals specialize in seducing married women. Their goal is to make their husband a cuckold. Clive is one of these people. His next step will most likely be an invitation to lunch in a nearby location, allowing for physical contact. He may reach for salt or a jug of water and hurt you while apologizing each time, but it will become a habit. After that, he can arrange a festive dinner with wine to weaken your resistance, followed by a kiss on the cheek and holding your hand as you return to the car. You do not have to resist because he is your boss, and it may appear harmless to you. He will continue to compliment you and find reasons for physical contact until it becomes commonplace. Similar to what occurred at the party. He'll eventually start asking about me, asking when I'm leaving and making comments like, "If you were mine, I'd never leave you alone." Or, "I believe he takes you for granted." He may even suggest that you check my email for signs of infidelity. When he discovers that I am out of town, he can invite you to dinner under the guise of discussing your promotion or resolving a fabricated issue. You'll most likely agree, hoping for career advancement or an explanation of what went wrong. The next dinner may be held in a facility with a dance floor. Perhaps when I leave on a business trip during such walks, he will dance with everyone but primarily with you, allowing for close physical contact. Most likely, he will dance all the slow songs with you, making the transition from lunch to dinner and dancing seem natural. He will find an opportunity to kiss you after several visits. If you resist, he will apologize profusely, saying something like, "I'm so sorry I couldn't resist you because you're so beautiful. Please forgive me." You will probably forgive him. Next time, he might make sure you've had too much to drink, or even put something in your drink to weaken your restraint. And before you know it, you're in his room, perplexed as to how it all happened. I'm willing to bet that if you stay on as his father, he'll have slept with you by this time next year. I looked at Linda. She was now crying, with tears dripping down her chin. You cannot be serious. You know I'd never cheat on you. I can deal with Carl if he tries anything. I am disappointed that you think so little of me that you believe I will fall for his nonsense. Linda, I am not some starry-eyed teenager. I didn't mean any disrespect, and I completely trust you. But predators like him have a way of getting past your defenses. To him, you are simply another conquest. Look how easily he sparked a rift between us tonight. This is our first major argument since we began dating. Doesn't this tell you something? Okay, I see your point. However, forewarned is forearmed. If he does anything like what you've described, I'll shut him down and report him to HR. Satisfied? Not really. If you truly love me and value our marriage, you will give your notice tomorrow. I love you more than anything, but I'm not going to let a predatory jerk force me out of a job I enjoy. You mentioned that you would bet on the outcome. So will I. If he hasn't slept with me by the next Christmas party, you'll get me the Porsche I've always wanted, and if he has anything you want, I cannot lose. Okay, I will think of something. I dropped the issue after that, and life resumed as usual. We continued with our routine of going to work, socializing with friends, and making love several times per week. Around 2 months later, I brought it up again. Linda. It's been 2 months since we talked about Carl. Has he invited you to lunch yet? Linda seemed evasive, similar to how she behaved when she wanted to conceal something, like when she wrecked her car. I won't give you any information until you tell me what you want. If I lost, I could tell she was trying to avoid answering, and I became concerned about our marriage. I knew Carl had asked, but had Linda agreed? The more I thought about it, the more convinced I was that I needed to protect my finances. I had my attorney prepare a post-up agreement. If she cheated, she would only take her clothes and what was in her account. There's nothing more. That night, when she came home from dinner, I handed her the post-enup. What is this? You asked me to decide what I wanted if we lost the bet. This is it. If you cheat on me before the Christmas party, you will leave with only your clothes and the money in your account. She looked at me as if I came from another planet. Are you serious? Dead serious. Carl, do you have enough confidence in your ability to resist to sign this document? Or have you already started eating lunch with him, as I predicted? She grabbed the pen, signed where necessary, and threw it at me before retreating to her bedroom and locking the door. Even though she didn't realize it, I knew she was lost at that point. The next day, I gave the signpost to my attorney for safekeeping, hoping I would never need it. As that would imply, our marriage had ended. For the rest of the day, I felt completely useless, with a stomach full of butterflies and nausea. I briefly considered getting rid of the problem, which would be straightforward, but then I decided Linda needed to prove herself if we were to start a family. I needed to be certain she was mother material now, rather than just discovering it. Later, when children became involved, I chose to let things unfold naturally. Linda and I hadn't talked about it since she locked me out of the bedroom that night, which was September. Everything had returned to normal until late August, when she appeared to have changed. One afternoon, I returned from an assignment and discovered Linda still at work. I began preparing dinner. When she arrived home, it was clear that something was wrong. I asked her about it. She dismissed it as a work issue for the next few days. She appeared agitated and refused to discuss it. Usually when I returned, we made love. But she said she was not feeling well, so we didn't have any intimacy for the next 2 days. By Saturday, she seemed to have returned to her normal self, as if she had made a decision. The weekend went well. We made love on Saturday night and Sunday morning, but her heart didn't seem to be fully invested. I decided to seek assistance because I was confident that I would win the bet, but I needed evidence for the divorce and to begin the post-up process. I contacted our team planner and explained my request. She and Carl would be monitored, and a surveillance team would bug their cars, his office, and any rooms they visited. Although I was saddened by the end of my marriage, Linda had been forewarned. I directed the team not to provide daily updates, but rather to submit a report by the end of November. On the 15th, I received the report folder, along with some advice. If there is any hope of reconciliation, watch only the first video. It should be enough for the divorce. The rest of the footage is not admissible in court, but listening to the dialogue may help you move forward. I followed their advice and only watched the first video. It showed Linda and another person walking down a hotel corridor. Linda opened the door and they both entered around 11:30 p.m. The video remained blank until 8:30 the next morning, when the other person exited the room with a satisfied grin. My marriage was obviously over. It was time to let go. I did not need to listen to the dialogue on the other discs. This was adequate for the night of the Christmas party. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, waiting for Linda, just as I had the year before. This time, however, I was wearing sweatpants rather than a tuxedo. Linda returned from a sales conference with her team about 6 weeks ago and appeared to have changed completely. There were no more intimate or affectionate gestures. She seemed distant and emotionally detached. It was obvious to me that she had succumbed to shithead's advances. Although this realization made me very sad, I knew I could no longer be close to her. I made up a story about having testicular problems and claiming that I had been advised to avoid all activities, which meant that I would be unable to attend the Christmas party. Linda, who had recently been promoted to assistant sales manager, would have to go on her own. When Linda finally came down the stairs, I was surprised by her lack of effort. Unlike previous years, she had chosen a simple cocktail dress, sensible shoes, and minimal jewelry. If not for the dress, she could have gone to work. I was astounded. She had always wanted to outshine the other wives at these parties. She approached me and quickly kissed my cheek. "I'm going out now," she said. "I will not be late, and I will have a lot to talk to you about tonight." With that, she opened the door and went to the party. Earlier in the day, I had met with my attorney, Sarah Cox, and collected 3 lawsuits: a divorce petition for Linda, an alienation of affection claim against the jerk, which I knew wouldn't result in much but could embarrass him, and a case for failing to enforce a company policy against harassment by a superior. Since half of the company knew about their affair, the boss had to be aware. Next, I went to see my surveillance team, who had gone above and beyond in their responsibilities, and I wanted to reward them. They flatly refused monetary compensation, claiming it was their pleasure and they were available, if I needed anything else. I was deeply moved by their loyalty and expressed my appreciation profusely. They then handed me 3 more folders, indicating that Clive had been very active. He had seduced 2 of the remaining 4 women on the sales team, as well as the CEO's pay. When I returned home, I packed all of the evidence and legal documents into my briefcase. I went to the party wearing only slacks, a sport coat, and a tie. On the way, I picked up the court server and brought her along. I gave her money for a cab ride home and asked her to deliver the folders to the woman's husband, whom I identified. When we arrived, the party was already in full swing. I presented my invitation and was admitted along with the court server. We sat at a corner table and no one paid us any attention. I identified the key individuals whose lives were about to change. When I saw Linda, she was having an animated conversation with an unpleasant man who didn't seem too pleased. When the music slowed for a slow dance, I realized it was time to act. I approached the band leader and told him I had an announcement to make. He stopped the band and handed me the microphone. I tapped it to catch everyone's attention. "Good evening, everyone. I hope you are having a wonderful time. I won't keep you long, but I have some early Christmas presents to distribute." I nodded at the server, who then approached Linda and Clive. Linda seemed stunned. Her expression resembled that of a surprised goldfish. The server handed Linda her first package before turning to Clive to give him his. She continued to hand out packages to the other wronged husbands before making her way over to me, where the elderly Mr. Benson was attempting to get my attention. She approached him and said the dreaded words, "Are you Mr. Walter Benson?" "Yes, Mr. Benson, you were served." She smiled at me and exited the venue. The silence was palpable. Instead of a pin dropping, the room was filled with the agonized cries of betrayed husbands. "How could you, you cheater, be starch? And why on earth?" Similar cries rang out from the other betrayed husbands. Slaps being delivered to unfaithful wives could also be heard. Clive made a quick exit, concerned for his own safety. Linda still stared at me as she opened her envelope. When she saw the photos, she burst into tears and collapsed to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. The first photo showed a porch with a red X over it and a note saying, "I won." The second photo shows her letting Clive into her room, while the third shows him leaving the next morning. Mr. Benson finally caught my attention. Mr. Benson was a devout lay preacher who upheld traditional values. "What's happening here, young man?" I took him to get a table and explained the situation. He was to blame because Clive initially had an affair with Linda in a company-paid hotel room. Because this location was considered company property, it was assumed that the incident took place on company grounds. Since then, Clive has seen Linda at least twice a day in his office for the past 6 weeks. In addition, he had relationships with 3 other women whom he blackmailed into dirty affairs. I informed him that the entire company, including the CEO, was aware of the incidents but did nothing to prevent them. Naturally, the CEO only learned about his wife's involvement tonight. Karma is a baby. He had such a red face, I thought he was going to have a heart attack. He got up and approached the microphone. "I want to get your attention. Please." There was silence in the hall, broken only by the sobs of women whose lives had just ended. "It has come to my attention that some employees of this company were engaging in inappropriate activities on company property. You know who you are. On Monday morning, you will need to contact the HR department to request disciplinary action. Mr. Clive West. If you are still here, you will be fired without compensation or references. To say I am disappointed with the others is an understatement. Many of you were aware of the situation but took no action. You could have prevented the dissolution of 4 marriages but instead gossiped and did nothing. I've always considered my employees to be family, but you showed me how mistaken I was. As a result, until further notice, all public events are canceled while I investigate this matter. Ray, as CEO, you should have intervened as soon as you learned about Clive's behavior. The fact that this applies to you does not excuse your inaction. You have been demoted to CEO, and I will resume my duties immediately. Please come see me on Monday morning. Victims' husbands, please contact me to discuss the terms of compensation. I recommend that you all hire the same lawyer to represent you collectively. I now need to personally apologize to Mr. Scott and assess the extent of the damage. Good night, everyone. The party is over. Please disperse." There was a general movement towards the door, punctuated by many disapproving glances at the offending wives. Ralph Benson approached and sat beside me, taking my hand. "I'm very sorry, son. There's an all-night Starbucks across the street. How about we get some coffee and see if we can figure this out? That sounds great, but I need to speak with my soon-to-be ex-wife first." "Okay, Barry. I'll see you over there in a few minutes." I went over to Linda, who was sitting alone and quietly crying. When I approached, she looked up at me. "I'm so sorry, baby. I messed up. Can we get past this and start over?" "Sorry, Linda, but that ship has sailed. You had a chance and blew it. I'll be gone for a few weeks, and I want you out of the house before I return. Here's my attorney's name and address. According to the posting you signed, you are only entitled to your clothes and the items you brought into the marriage. However, you may keep your jewelry and any funds in your account. Your credit cards, along with all other accounts, have been frozen. You entered the marriage with $3,000 in your account. My attorney has a check in that amount for you to collect. Your car's lease and insurance will expire in a few months. You have 2 options: take over or cancel them. It is up to you. Thank you, Barry. I made an error. Things got out of hand and I didn't intend for it to happen. Do you remember our conversation from last Christmas? When did I tell you what would happen if you stayed as his personal assistant? I know you do, so no need to respond. You told me you weren't a starry-eyed schoolgirl and that you could cope with him refusing to leave your job because you wanted the promotion. Well, you got the promotion, but look at how much it cost you and us. Was it worthwhile?" She burst into tears again as I turned and walked away. I headed across to meet Ralph, still harboring feelings for her, and had an idea. When I arrived, I noticed that Ralph had already placed our order. He must be a mind reader. The strong black coffee with 2 sugars was ideal. I sipped and smiled. "How did you know?" I asked. "Barry, I've been in sales my entire life. I can read people as if they were books. If I had interviewed Clive, he would not have gotten the position. As for your coffee, you appeared to be a strong coffee drinker, so I made a guess about the sugar. Did I get it correct?" "Exactly right. Look, I have a flight in a little over an hour, so I'll get right to the point. Are you considering firing all of those wives? It has been on my mind. I disapprove of cheating. Can we strike a deal? If I drop my lawsuit, will you keep Linda and promote her to Clive's former position? She's been in that position for 3 years and has repeatedly told me she could do a better job than her boss. You still have feelings for her, despite what she did to you, don't you? I can't help it. I just can't be with her after what she did. So have we made a deal? Despite my better judgment, we have a deal. But if she cannot deliver, she is out. Okay, that sounds fair. Thank you. I finished my coffee and stood up, ready to leave. Barry, if you ever need a job, come to me. I have 2 other branches and am always looking for talent. I smiled, nodded, shook his hand, and departed. Another time, another location, and I'm confident we would have been friends. I caught a flight to England and arrived at Heathrow 13 hours later. I took a taxi to the Dorchester and checked into my luxurious suite. The next morning, I awoke late and called room service to order a full English breakfast. I'd always wanted to try it, but when it arrived, it looked like a heart attack on a plate. Everything was unhealthy with the exception of the eggs. I hesitantly tried a little of everything, and it was all delicious. I ate the meal with 2 cups of what the English call coffee. While in England, I wanted to see everything, and the hotel doorman was more than happy to help me plan my day and avoid tourist traps. On my final day, I called my team and asked them to schedule a meeting with Clive West. It's time for my revenge. As I left the hotel for the last time, I gave Tom, the doorman, a generous tip and said goodbye. I had enjoyed my time in England and promised myself that I would return someday. The following day, I returned home and walked into a house that no longer felt like home. It felt empty and cold, and I instantly missed Linda. While unpacking, I realized that all of Linda's belongings were gone, leaving me with a hollow feeling. I went out for a meal and some beers, and after a few drinks, I was pushed into a cab and driven home. The next morning, I realized it was Sunday and I couldn't do anything until Monday. After getting my car, I cleaned up the yard and watered the flower boxes. I wondered who had done that while I was gone. My next-door neighbor came out while I was bagging up cut grass. I asked if he had watered the flowers, and he said Linda had come over several times to care for them. I was surprised. Why would she do that? On Monday, I called my attorney and made an appointment for that afternoon, Linda following the first Christmas party. When I introduced Clive to Barry, I noticed some tension between them. Their handshake was a display of competitive energy, with Barry clearly coming out on top. The interaction was charged, and I was concerned that Barry would cause a scene, so I quickly led Clive away to mingle with the others. I got so caught up in making my rounds that I lost track of time and realized Barry was no longer at our table. I went looking for him because I couldn't find him. I asked one of the husbands he usually spoke with if he knew where Barry had gone. He left. I saw him take off his coat and leave. I was furious. Did he explain why? He did not need to. You left him alone for more than 3 hours. I suppose he realized he was not wanted. I saw him slip a note into your purse. Have you read it already? I approached our table, grabbed my purse, and pulled out the note. What's the note? You don't need me. So I went home. It was signed by Barry. Not as much as I used to love Barry, which only fueled my rage. I checked my watch. I had been at the party for more than 3.5 hours and had left my husband alone. No surprise he was upset. I grabbed my purse to go home, only to discover that I had no money and had not brought any of my cards. How was I going to get back? I opened my purse to retrieve my cloakroom ticket and discovered $220 bills. Barry had anticipated everything. When I arrived home, Barry was already in bed. I started berating him, expressing how humiliated I was. He remained calm and stated that we would discuss it in the morning, but I insisted on speaking right away. He accused me of making him appear foolish by parading around with Clive. When I denied it, he handed me his phone and told me to watch the video he'd recorded, watching the video in horror. I saw that he was correct. We appeared to be a couple. Feeling terrible, I went to apologize, but he had moved to the guest bedroom and locked the door. I knocked and apologized, but he said we'd talk in the morning. I made sure to get up before Barry and started preparing one of his favorite breakfasts. When I heard him stirring, I finished preparing his meal so that it was ready when he came down. We ate in silence, and I wondered what he was thinking. After he finished his breakfast, I began my apology, assuring him that nothing had happened between Clive and me. He said he believed me, but then went on to explain how I had fallen into Clive's trap and what Clive's next step would be to seduce me. I was shocked at first, but then everything made sense. Barry's analysis appeared to be spot on, as if Clive were following a script written by Barry. When Barry asked me to leave Benson's, I became frustrated and told him I would never betray his trust. I was not a naive schoolgirl. I could handle myself. Barry once bet me that if I didn't leave Benson's, I would cheat by next Christmas. I was certain that I would never cheat on Barry. I would rather die. So I accepted the bet and asked for a new car when he lost. I also asked what he wanted if he won. He said he'd consider it for the next 2 months. Everything went exactly as Barry had predicted. Clive seized every opportunity to be near me, but I was ready for him. He dangled the prospect of a promotion to sales manager, a position Kim would leave open at the end of the year. We went out to lunch several times to discuss work issues that could have been resolved at the office. Yes, he touched me innocently as often as he could, but I knew what he was doing and remained amused. He started asking me questions about Barry's work and his absences, just as I had been warned. He held my hand several times before beginning to caress it. I would politely withdraw my hand whenever this occurred. He would apologize, claiming he didn't realize he was doing it. Around that time, Barry brought home an envelope from his lawyer and asked me to sign it, claiming it was a prenuptial agreement that would be enforced if I committed infidelity. I signed it without reading it, knowing that it would be unnecessary because our relationship was strong. The sales team, including myself, had to visit an important client for a pitch and were gone for 3 days after the client had signed the contract. Clive suggested we celebrate, so everyone went out to dinner except Kim, who preferred to go home early. We had dinner at the hotel, and Clive suggested we have a drink at the bar. We all agreed, but when we arrived, there were no seats available. We ended up seated at a table, and Clive ordered drinks. The band began playing, and we all danced. After 3 drinks, I typically limit myself to 2. Clive and I were dancing to a slow song when he unexpectedly kissed me. I responded briefly before slapping his face and walking away. Clive chased after me, profusely apologizing for having too much to drink and being taken aback by how beautiful I looked. It was a classic excuse, and I almost fell for it. I felt ashamed and frustrated with myself and Barry for being correct about such situations. If I had had a few more drinks, I could have ended up in Clive's bed that night. The next morning, I left before breakfast and drove home. When I arrived, Barry must have noticed something was wrong and offered to help, but I ignored him and remained moody all day. Friday. That night, as I lay in bed unsure of Clive, I had an epiphany. I would notify human resources about Clive. On Monday, resign. By Saturday morning, I felt a tremendous weight had been lifted. I cuddled up to Barry and we made love with an intensity I had never experienced before. We did it again that night and the next morning, and I am sure Barry realized we had reached a watershed moment in our marriage. On Monday, I went to work as usual, determined to put an end to this charade and correct Clive. When I arrived, Clive was waiting for me and invited me to his office. Linda, I'm very sorry about Thursday night. I drank too much and couldn't think clearly. I know you're upset with me right now, but please don't act rashly. I spoke with Mr. Benson, and he is going to recommend you for the managerial position. However, causing a scene now may not be viewed favorably by the board, and you may miss out on the opportunity. I will stay out of your way if you give me another chance. I considered his offer because I was interested in the promotion. Finally, I agreed, and we moved forward. The annual company sales conference was approaching, and all 3 offices from across the country planned to attend. My promotion was scheduled to be announced at this event. The conference would take place in the neighboring state for 2 days, with a company ball for employees only on the second night as a team-building exercise. We each drove there separately and checked in. I went down for dinner, joined some colleagues, and had a nice meal with a few drinks. Tired, I went to bed early, knowing that the next day would be busy. I was dressed in a business suit for the afternoon meetings, and everything went well. During the final plenary session, awards were distributed, and my promotion was announced to rousing cheers. To celebrate, I went out to dinner and drank a few glasses of wine. Clive, who was sitting at the other end of the table, kept his promise and hasn't made any advances since our last conversation. After dinner, I dressed in a cocktail dress for the graduation ball. When I entered the ballroom, I noticed the rest of our team and joined them. Several gentlemen from other offices invited me to dance, and I accepted. They were all very polite and maintained appropriate distance. Finally, Mr. Benson apologized and left. Clive immediately asked me to dance. Since I hadn't danced with him all evening, I agreed. We danced for 2 songs, and I realized I was completely relaxed, probably due to the wine and 3 cocktails I drank earlier. When Clive invited me to the final dance, I did not say no. However, the dance was slow. As we walked down the hall, Clive paused behind a large potted plant in the back. I looked up to him and he kissed me. Rather than pulling away, I drew him closer. We continued in the same vein until the song ended. I brought Clive to my room where we quickly got down to business. We slept together. Following that, I fell asleep. I awoke in the morning not knowing what was going on. Feeling a strange sensation, I looked at myself and was horrified to discover that my fingers were coated in something white. My memories of what happened came flooding back. I screamed, dashed into the bathroom, and caught sight of a smiling Clive lying next to where I had just been lying. I desperately tried to wash it all away, crying uncontrollably, realizing Barry was correct. Clive seduced me at Christmas, and now my life is ruined. When I couldn't get myself cleaned up anymore, I went back to the bedroom where Clive was still standing, dressed the same way and smiling, so I finally got my way with little Miss Goody Two-Shoes. It took me nearly a year, but it was worthwhile. You are a godsend. From now on, I will enjoy having you with me while your husband is unaware. Starting Monday, I will be able to have some privacy with you at any time. Jerk! I'll never be with you again. What did you put into my drink? Well, let us not rush it. We have a long and appealing relationship ahead of us. In response to your question, I added some cheer to your drink. You were my primary target. However, your obsession with your cuckold husband made things difficult. It took nearly a year, but I finally had to take this step. Molly and Christina from our sales department gave up after 2 months. Even our CEO's wife, Lucy, took nearly 6 months. Take a look at this if you swear you'll never see me again. He took out his phone and showed me a photo of us together. I began crying again. Do not cry. Imagine how exciting it will be to spend time behind your husband's back. If you do not want these photos sent to Barry, you have to do me a small favor right now. I sobbed and did exactly what he wanted. He looked at me and said, I am not going to pay attention to it this time, but if it happens again, your husband will be surprised. Then he left the room, and I got dressed and went home, skipping breakfast entirely. When I got home, I couldn't look Barry in the eye and was concerned about what the future held for me. I was afraid Barry would find out what I had done and divorce me. Barry helped me keep my distance by explaining that he had testicular inflammation. He explained that he wouldn't be able to be near me for several weeks. This decision was ideal for me because I couldn't accept the idea that he would have to perform even on a second-rate stage, regardless of how careless he was. On Monday, I arrived at work as usual, and Clive was already waiting for me. He summoned me to his office and locked the door behind us. Okay, Linda, you understand what I want, and I did what he asked. After that, he told me to return to work. When I left his office, I noticed Molly and Christina giving me sympathetic looks. I went to the bathroom and cried until I ran out of strength. Barry and I did not talk much that night. When he asked what had happened, I apologized and went to bed. The situation repeated itself the next day and for several days. Clive wanted me to be happy, but he couldn't because I was depressed and didn't want to do it. After several days of attempting to please me, he finally gave up and began doing it with either Molly or Kristen. Because I was near his office, I could hear them cheering, and I was relieved it wasn't me. Despite this, I had to visit his office on occasion, and I still couldn't figure out how to avoid this situation by remaining married. On the morning of the holiday party, Clive called me into his office. You turned out to be a major disappointment. Why didn't you get carried away with it like other women? We can have a good time, but I'm not going to let you leave so easily. When we return, I'll meet with a few potential clients for dinner at the Silver Dollar Hotel, and you'll be part of the deal. I told them about you, and they're excited to work with you as a couple after you sign the contract. See you tonight. There was no way I could put up with this. Clive and his entourage were in for a surprise. That night, Barry stated that he was still uncomfortable at the party, but he insisted that I attend. It turned out well for me. I was able to meet Clive and explain everything to Barry when I returned home. I knew my marriage was probably over, but I couldn't continue like this. It was destroying me. I was losing weight because I was sick after every meal and hadn't slept well for over 6 weeks. I changed my outfit for the party, and I'm sure Barry noticed because he gave me a strange look as he left. His farewell was cold and distant in her absence. See you later, or I love you. It appeared to me that we would never see each other again. When I arrived at the event and made my rounds, many people avoided making eye contact with me. It was obvious that word had spread about my status as an outcast. Nobody wanted to sit at my table, so I was alone, struggling to hold back tears when Clive walked in. He made a beeline for me and sat beside me, smirking. I looked him in the eyes and said, You can wipe that smirk off your face. Whatever you had planned for Monday won't happen. After Mr. Benson delivers his Christmas speech, I will reveal everything you've been up to, mention names and point fingers. My marriage may be over, but your career will not survive, and I doubt you'll be able to catch up when Barry does. At that point, the music abruptly stopped, and a voice I recognized began wreaking havoc on people's lives. My husband was exacting his revenge. Just then, a woman approached and asked if I was Linda Scott. When I confirmed, she handed me an envelope and stated, "You have been served." She then did the same for Clive. After that, she approached Molly and Christine's husbands and handed them each a package. She did the same for our CEO and then Mr. Benson. My husband was standing next to Mr. Benson, and I nearly fainted. I opened the envelope knowing exactly what to expect. Divorce papers. However, the first thing I pulled out was a photo of the Porsche I wanted. He had drawn a large red cross over it and written, "I win," in capital letters. Next, I discovered 2 more photos of Clive entering and leaving my hotel room. I collapsed to the floor, and 2 men assisted me into a chair. Molly and her husband were yelling at each other, and Christine was on the floor holding her face. She'd clearly been hit. 2 men were restraining her husband, who was sobbing like a baby. I couldn't see the CEO or his wife, so I had no idea what happened to them. Mr. Benson took the microphone and announced that the party had ended and that severe measures would be implemented by Monday. He then sat down with Barry and began talking. Mr. Benson left the room after that, and I never saw him again. Barry stood in front of me, looking sad. He told me he was leaving and would return in 3 weeks, by which time I should have moved out. He said much more than that, and I begged him to take me back, but he just walked away. I was afraid to go to work on Monday, but I made it on time. The guard escorted me to Mr. Benson's office. When we got inside, Mr. Benson released the guard and motioned for me to sit down. I noticed a box of tissues in front of me and used one to wipe my eyes. "So, young lady, you and a few others have completely ruined your marriages. If you had contacted me sooner, none of this would have been necessary. I would have dealt with West and ensured that you received compensation. But since you haven't done that yet, we must decide what to do with all of you. West has disappeared, and I do not expect to see him again. I like to think of myself as honest. So if you tell me everything without holding back, I'll make a decision based on it. I warn you that if you lie to me, I will know it right away. You are finished. So start at the beginning and don't hide anything." I told him everything, beginning with our first meeting with Clive and including every detail. At the end, I was in tears and he handed me napkins. "Thank you for being honest. You have definitely broadened my perspective. It is now clear that this was not a random occurrence. It was a meticulously planned attack on your marriage and those involved. It appears that you were the last to resist and had to be sedated. But that doesn't excuse your failure to contact me afterward. This suggests a flaw in your decision-making. Which brings me to another point. Your husband must have a deep affection for you. He and I had a discussion that night after I left, and we reached an agreement. He agreed to withdraw his claim, which I understand was in the high 6-figure range, on the condition that I keep you in Clive's former position, which I agreed to. So congratulations. You are now the senior sales representative at Benson's." He extended his hand, and I shook it. "Thank you. I feel like I don't deserve it, but I won't disappoint you. I promise. Don't be overly grateful just yet. You have a lot of work ahead of you in rebuilding the sales team. I intend to fire both Mally and Christine because they contributed to the dissolution of your marriage. Remember that if you do not meet expectations, I will closely monitor your performance. You are out. I hope you understand. I understand, and you will not be disappointed." With that, I stood up and entered my new office. Barry had come through for me yet again, and all I had done was cause him pain. I met with my attorney as planned. She informed me that Linda had arrived, collected the check, and was prepared to sign the divorce papers. On one condition. Linda asked to meet with me for 30 minutes to explain what had happened. Sarah suggested that I agree to this, or Linda could prolong the divorce process for up to a year. I asked Sarah to arrange the meeting. That afternoon, I informed the firm of the situation using the fictitious name the team used for the non-existent agency and requested some time off. They quickly agreed, putting the team on hold for the foreseeable future. I then contacted the team planner to schedule a meeting with Clive West. Clive had left the party and disappeared. He relocated to another state and secured a position as marketing manager at a small printing company. He'd started making advances on the female employees and was out with a married woman at a diner. He managed to spike her drink, anticipating a night of wild behavior while her husband was away. When the couple approached Clive's car, the team intervened. Clive was tasered and sedated, while the woman was rendered unconscious and transported to a nearby hospital. Clive awoke groggy and soon realized he was suspended by his wrists over a 45-gallon drum filled with some sort of liquid. The first sound Clive heard was "Boss, he's awake." Figures approached, all wearing ski masks. Clive just lost control of his bladder and wet himself. The four men laughed, and one of them spoke. "Hello, Clive. I see your evening didn't go exactly as planned. Do not worry. The woman you were with is in the hospital for a headache. I'm sure she'll have to explain to her husband why she dressed up and went to a diner with another man. But that isn't our concern. You have much bigger problems to deal with. First and foremost, you are probably curious about what is in the barrel. Let me clarify. It's a horrible, corrosive mixture intended to dissolve a body in a matter of hours. But it's not yours. At least not yet. Do you know my voice?" "No." Well, let's be clear. The man speaking took off his mask, and Clive thought, "Oh shit, I'm screwed." "It's Barry Scott. I am confident that you will now recognize me as the person you have wronged, or more specifically, my wife. I know she agreed, but it was because of the illegal substances you provided her. You achieved your goal but ruined our marriage. But now you must face the consequences. I understand that part of your excitement stemmed from the prospect of the reward. So let us see how much pleasure you get from anticipating the pain you will have to endure over the next 3 days. You're proud of your appearance. So, first thing I'll do is shave your head. You enjoy listening to women discuss their lives and their husbands so that you can manipulate them. As a result, I will deprive you of one ear. You also admire their beauty, so you won't be able to hide your desire to entice them into your bed. You ruined my wife's honor by kissing her. You touched my wife in a way that only suited me. I took the rose pruning scissors and did it. You were dancing alongside my wife. After all, you have abused my wife. You will never have pleasure again. Only after all of this will you understand how much pain you have caused me. You may be considering reporting this to the police, but doing so will result in 2 outcomes. First, my associates will locate and lower you into this drum. You might not care because your life is already shattered. They will also take your sister and nieces to Mexico, where they will be auctioned off for a high price, especially blonde white women, and even more so in children. Of course, I was bluffing. I would never hurt a child. But he didn't realize it. Tears streamed down his face. But I didn't feel satisfied. "So how are you liking the suspense so far? Has the cat got your tongue?" We lifted him from the hook and strapped him into a chair. Over the next 3 days, I carried out my threats, eventually leaving a broken man by the roadside and calling 911. The police questioned me about the kidnapping, but I had proof that I was on a flight from England at the time. Clive never explained what had happened to him. He would only say that he couldn't recall anything after leaving the diner. Meeting. I was sitting alone in Sarah's empty office, waiting for Linda to arrive. Sarah was present and informed me that the entire meeting would be recorded for my safety. When Linda arrived, it was clear that she had put a lot of effort into this meeting. Her hair was styled in a new manner, her makeup was flawless, and she wore open clothing. She looked stunning, but it made no impression on me. I dressed casually to convey my indifference. I began a conversation. "Okay, Sarah, you requested this meeting. What do you want?" "First and foremost, I apologize and assure you that I did not intend to hurt you. For the first time, I lost control while under the influence of illegal substances. Following that, he blackmailed me into becoming his woman. In the end, I realized I'd never be free from him, and I was about to expose him at the Christmas party, but you went off the rails and ruined everything. When you arrived, you saw me telling him about my plan. I understand this, but it does not absolve you of guilt. You were warned about his intentions, but you still hoped for a promotion. When he first tried to kiss you, you should have stopped him. But you didn't. You continued to date him behind my back until he finally attacked you. Even then, You could have approached me, and I would have forgiven you. Instead, you did everything on your own, putting up with more bullying for the next 6 weeks. I cannot even look at you right now. You are tainted by his depravity, so if you want to reconcile, forget it. You blew your chance when you slept with him for the first time after he attacked you at the hotel. So, are we finished, or do I have to listen to more of your pathetic excuses? Linda, in tears, stood up and ran out of the room when I called after her. Remember to sign the divorce papers when you leave. Linda had moved in with her parents while searching for a place of her own. The house where we had lived together was part of my job benefits, so I stayed there alone. One night, her mother called me. I'd always gotten along with her parents. They viewed me as the son they never had. Barry, Linda is in a terrible condition. She only works, eats very little, and spends her entire time crying in her room. I'm worried she'll hurt herself. Cannot you forgive her? She recognizes that she was at fault, and I'm confident she'll never act so recklessly again. Mom, I'm so sorry it's come to this. I'm equally heartbroken as she is. But there is no turning back now. She made her choices, and now she must face the consequences. I still love her, but I can't turn that off. If it helps, I'm also having trouble sleeping, and every time I think about her, it feels like a knife in my heart. She deeply hurt me. I doubt I will ever be able to trust another woman again. I cannot go through that kind of pain again. Please tell her that I wish her the best and that she should move on. Later that week, her father called, and I anticipated hearing a similar sentiment from him. But he surprised me. Hello, son. I know Mom called earlier this week, and I just wanted you to know that you have my support. If Mom had treated me like she did you, when I was your age, I could still be in prison for multiple murders. I've chastised Linda for her actions, but she is still my daughter. So I'm doing whatever I can to help her. I'd also like to thank you for not engaging in physical conflict with her, even though she deserved it. If you ever need someone to talk to, please call me and we can meet for a drink. I understand you and Linda are done, but please do not be a stranger. Dad, I cannot express how much your words mean to me. I sincerely wish I could move on and restore what we had. But it's still too painful right now, and I can't think clearly about Linda. Perhaps in a year or two I will be able to forgive her, and we can become friends. But I am not making any promises. Please tell her I love her, and that she needs to move on with her life. That was the last time I spoke with her parents. I returned to work, and life went on. I stopped dating and did not pursue intimate relationships when I felt the need. I used a high-end escort agency, and I never saw the same girl twice. My trading skills were improving, and I was making good money. 2 months later, I was summoned to see Colonel Scott. There's no relation. He informed me that our department was going to expand. We were tasked with setting up 2 new units, one in England to cover Europe, and one in Japan to cover Asia and the Far East. I was offered the position of establishing the unit in England, which would be made up of a 5-man team drawn from France, Germany, Italy, and the UK. I would lead the team but not be directly involved in the missions. The team would be led by an SAS sergeant, with others responsible for planning, reconnaissance, supply, and cyber information. I accepted the position because I was feeling stuck in my current position. Of course, there was a pay increase, albeit without any additional risk. Money. Financially, it would be roughly the same. I accepted the offer because I was no longer content where I was. Everything reminded me of Linda reopening old wounds. I needed a fresh start, so I planned to leave at the end of the month. I packed up the items I wanted to take or send and stored the remainder. Leaving the house was bittersweet. The many happy memories made me sad, but I was also relieved to be able to move on. When I arrived in England, an embassy car greeted me, and I was assigned to the embassy in London, which had an apartment just outside of Chelsea. The apartment had 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, and a lounge dining area, which ensured my comfort. A cleaner would come twice a week, and our bodyguard would pick me up in the morning and drop me off after work. I met the team, and we did our best to get acquainted because I would be staying in London while they were stationed at the SAS barracks in Hereford, with our only means of communication being the phone. I quickly adapted and began working, and I was surprised by how many calls we handled throughout the year. Our lead agent was producing impressive results, while the criminal elements were in turmoil. This situation persisted for the next 5 years, during which I began to miss the American weather, which seemed to rain almost constantly in the winter and have droughts in the summer. Who would have guessed? I resigned from the company and went back home, unsure what to expect. I found a lovely 3-bedroom house in a gated community and moved in. I no longer needed to work, but I continued to invest in the markets, earning enough to keep my savings. I ate out most evenings, exercised 3 times a week at the local gym, and went to concerts, plays, and movies on occasion. The last of these proved to be life-changing. After seeing the latest Marvel film, I was sitting at Kim's diner enjoying a steak dinner with a beer when someone took the seat across from me. I looked up and almost choked on a mouthful of beer. Linda sat across from me. Oh, exactly what I needed. I thought I'd moved on and was enjoying my bachelor lifestyle. And there she was, as stunning as ever. So, aren't you going to say hello after all these years? My heartbeat was racing. This woman continues to have a greater impact on me than I would like to acknowledge. I was actually relieved to see her and realized I no longer carried the grudge I had for so long. Hello, Linda. You look fantastic. That was all I was able to say, and she looked great, much more at ease than I felt. That is for sure. Is this all you have to say? No. How have you been? It's nice to see you. Sorry for catching me off guard. Yes, it's nice to see you. What brought you here? I looked around, hoping to spot a partner or a boyfriend. I'm out with some co-worker friends. We have a monthly girls' night that includes a movie and dinner afterwards. Barry, we've got a lot to catch up on, but not here. Call me and we'll arrange to meet. Please do not brush me off. It's critical that we talk anyway. I need to get back to the others before they start making up stories, if you get what I mean. She took out a business card and wrote her number on the back, and I watched her walk away. I thought I was over her, but now I'm watching her leave and thinking about what could have been, what should have been, if she had stayed faithful. My stomach tightened, and I considered tearing up the card, but she seemed so insistent on meeting, so I kept it. My meal was ruined, so I requested a check. As I paid, Linda and her friends smiled at me. Call me petty, but I ignored them and walked all the way home. I couldn't get her out of my mind. I wish we hadn't crossed paths. I didn't sleep well that night, so I got up early and went to the gym to distract myself. It did not work. She was constantly on my mind, so I decided to call her, but not right away. Allow her to sweat and wonder if I will call. I managed to wait until Thursday before finally calling her. The card indicated she was now the CEO of Benson's, and I couldn't help but wonder who she had slept with to get that promotion. I immediately chastised myself for that unworthy thought. When I called, she answered immediately. She said, "Hi, Barry," and her cheerful tone reminded me of how much I missed her. "I thought you would never call." I had reasons. "Look, if you still want to meet, I'm open to it. How about Friday night at the diner?" "Sorry, Barry. I'm going to Mom's for dinner on Friday night. How about we meet for lunch at the diner? Say it twice and take it from there. Okay? See you then." I ended the call and went about my usual Saturday morning errands, but my thoughts kept returning to Linda. And why did she want to reconnect after all this time? When I arrived home, I changed into slacks and a polo shirt. Nothing overly formal, but not too casual either. Upon arrival, I was relieved to find her in a booth tucked away in the corner, most likely for privacy. She was wearing jeans, a t-shirt, and a denim jacket. As I approached, she stood up and, instead of shaking hands, pulled me in for a quick kiss on the cheek. I felt a flutter in my stomach and took a step back to look at her. She sat back down with a grin on her face, as if she had just won a wager. I followed suit and stared at the menu, but my thoughts remained on that kiss. Damn, she still had the ability to influence me so easily. I knew I had to take control of the situation. So, Linda, what was so important that we had to meet and reopen old wounds? Haven't we both suffered enough? I apologize if I have caused you additional pain. This wasn't my intention. You just seemed lost when you walked in. I thought you might need some comfort. It's like old times. Can we order first? I am starving. I came straight from the gym and didn't eat breakfast. We ordered bacon, waffles, and eggs for Linda, a bagel for me, and we both had coffee while we ate. We kept each other updated on what had happened in our lives over the last 5 years. Linda was promoted to CEO when Ray Barnes left for new opportunities, and Ralph Benson went into semi-retirement. Linda inquired about my previous 5 years, but I explained that I was unable to share much due to the classified nature of my job. She seemed genuinely interested when I told her I had gotten my trader's license and was doing well. We discussed various topics over dessert, but once that was finished, more coffee was served. Linda's mood shifted. "Barry, the first thing I want to say is that I have missed you every day. We were apart, but never stopped loving you. You should also know that I spent 2 years looking for you, but the government refused to confirm that you worked for them. I gave up when 2 men in black suits approached me and told me to stop searching for national security reasons. I was left wondering if I had married James Bond without realizing it. And now we've run into each other. Before we continue, I need to know if you are still working for the government." "No, Lynn. I have left that life behind. I now work independently as a trader. In that case, there's something you should know." She took an envelope from her purse, opened it, took out a photo, and handed it to me, smiling. The photo showed a 5-year-old girl smiling at the camera. I noticed the resemblance to Linda and raised an eyebrow in question. "This is our daughter, Sarah Jane Scott. Here's the proof. She gave me a birth certificate and 2 documents. The certificate listed me as the father, and other documents contained DNA results confirming that I was her father." I was stunned, unsure whether this was an elaborate ruse to entice me back or if it was genuine. How? When? I felt sick and nauseous the last time we were together, before Clive attacked me, every morning before the holiday party. I assumed it was just stress. But after you left, I visited the doctor, who informed me that I was 4 months pregnant. I was desperate, thinking it could be Clive's baby, but I couldn't bring myself to end the pregnancy in case it was yours. So I carried her to term, and I saw her for the first time after her birth. I realized she was ours. So I conducted a DNA test, which confirmed that she was your daughter. Barry, I know you've always wanted a child, and you now have one. You must decide whether you want to be a part of her life, and if so, in what capacity. You have the freedom to choose who you want to be. An absentee father, a father who works on weekends or full-time. I need to know before introducing you to her. She recognizes you because I have a wedding photo on my wall and a photo of us together on the mantelpiece. I never gave up hope that we'd be together again. On the other hand, if you do not want to be a father, simply leave and I will not contact you again. The choice is yours. I sat there looking like a complete fool, already smitten with this little girl I hadn't even met yet. Why wouldn't I want to be a part of her life? She felt like a part of me, possibly the best piece. Linda's smiling face caught my eye and I nodded. My eyes welled up with tears and I smiled goofily. She could tell she had me hooked. The allure was irresistible. I can tell by your expression that you want to be involved in her life. We'll figure it out as we go. Finish your coffee, and then I'll drive you home to meet her. The drive to Linda's house was quiet. My mind is racing, jumping from thought to thought. When we arrived at a lovely gated home in an upscale neighborhood and stepped out of the car, the front door opened and a small blonde whirlwind charged at her mother. "Mommy, I miss you. Is this the man in your wedding photo?" "Yes, sweetheart. This is your daddy." Hearing myself called daddy nearly sent my heart racing, and I had to blink away. Tears. "Mommy, why is daddy crying?" "Is he sad?" "No, sweetie. He can't help but be happy to see you. Now go say hello and show him inside." Sarah approached me shyly and took my hand. "Hello, I'm Sarah. Do you want to see my room? Mommy said it's fine. Come on. Hello, Sarah. I'm Barry, and I'd like to see your room." "No, that's silly. You're daddy, not Barry." She led the way, pulling me along as Linda stood there smiling, tears streaming down her cheeks. Of course, Linda and I quickly rekindled our romance and married within a year. Sarah was Linda's primary bridesmaid, with some assistance from Linda's mother. I've been a stay-at-home dad for 2 years now, and I absolutely love it. Linda manages Benson's, but she will soon need to take maternity leave because we are expecting another little Scott any day now. Am I happy? Absolutely. On a lighter note, 2 deaf men enter a bar. One of them gestures that he will get the drinks and walks to the bar. After ordering and reading the bill, he believes it is excessively expensive. He asks the bartender in broken English why it is so expensive. The bartender points to the speakers and claims it is because of the music. The man asks, "Rock and roll? What? No jazz?" "No." So what happens next? Country and Western. Oh. The man returns to his friend and tells him that their next drink will be somewhere else. When his friend asks why, he tells him about the music and points to the speakers. Rock and roll, no jazz, no. So what happens next? Someone from Preston. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe, if you haven't already. Also, leave a comment below with your thoughts on what happened.